Excellent. All right, I'm going to call to order this meeting of the Fairfax County Architecture Review Board for June 13th, 2024. In order to bring this meeting to order, there's a few administrative items that we have to walk through. We do not need to do a vote of audibility for remote board member participation because we have no members participating remotely. However, we do still need to take up action on public comment time limitations. The ARB needs to determine how long each member of the public will be able to speak during public comment periods. The public will be allowed to comment after consent agenda items and after each action item, as is standard ARB practice. I would look for a motion. Mr. Zellman.
Mr. Chairman, I move that each member of the public has 1 minute to speak.
All right. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Murray. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Passes unanimously. Any of those opposed? Any abstentions? I didn't think there was, but I'll ask just to be certain. All right. Notifications. Just to let everyone know, this meeting is being recorded. The recording will be posted within 10 days following the meeting. And following that, to kick off our meetings, we always do a statement of purpose and intent of our historic overlay districts. And Mr. John Burns has offered to read that for us. Mr. Burns.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Historic overlay districts are created for the purpose of promoting the general welfare, education, economic prosperity, and recreational pleasure of the public through the perpetuation of those general areas or individual structures and premises that have been officially designated by the Board of Supervisors as having historical, cultural, architectural, or archaeological significance. Regulations within such districts are intended to protect against destruction of or encroachment upon such areas, structures, and premises, to encourage uses which will lead to their continuance, conservation, and improvement in a manner appropriate to the preservation of the cultural, social, economic, political, architectural, or archaeological heritage of the county, to prevent creation of environmental influences adverse to such purposes, and to assure that new structures and uses within such districts will be in keeping with the character to be preserved and enhanced.
Thank you very much, Mr. Burns. All right, now we need to go to our next item, approval of the agenda. All members have an agenda in front of them, as well as presented on the screen for the items for action and workshop. I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as submitted, or with revisions if requested.
I move that we approve the agenda as submitted.
Right, there's a motion. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Kalinsky. All those in favor? Aye. The opposed? Any abstentions? All right. Motion carries. All right, a few other housekeeping items for applicants. For anyone here for their first time presenting, please limit your presentation to 8 minutes for your first submission. If you are here for a resubmission, we ask you to limit to 3 minutes to clarify that is the presentation that you are providing to the ARB, not the entire discussion is limited to 8 minutes. But that any presentation being provided should be relatively confined to that time frame, so then we can get to questions. For a little bit more additional context, since we have a lot of folks here today, following a presentation, I then will ask if there are any members of the public who have comment on any item up for review. As you heard, we've provided time for members of the public to provide comments. What I'll do is I'll go around the room because I anticipate we do have some folks this time, and I'll ask you to raise your hand and let me know if you're going to want to provide public comment. I'll ask when you do come up there that you also identify yourself so it's written into the record. With those housekeeping items out of the way, Daniel, I don't think we have any guests. Everyone here is for an item, I believe, on the agenda. There are no consent calendar items. And so that takes us to our first item for action, ARB 24 LKA 01 1631 Washington Plaza Mechanical, located at 1631 Washington Plaza, Suite 1631, Reston Tax Map 017231 1631 in the Lake Ann Village Center Historic Overlay District. The applicant is proposing mechanical improvements, including the installation of architectural metal screening, panel enclosures for a mechanical rooftop unit, refrigerant lines, and exterior ductwork. Benjamin Keeney and Graham Morris represent the application. Yes.
I could go read.
Again.
Towards the back.
All right, and for the record, Ms. Samantha Vaughn is recusing herself from this item for action. We'll come get you when it's done, Ms. Vaughn.
Good afternoon. Benchini, architect on the project. This is the Deli Italiano space at the historic Lake Anne site on Washington Plaza. Project has a quite a bit of history, but I think tonight we want to specifically talk about architectural screening elements that we have been working on recently. Next slide, please. So the existing conditions originally, we had kind of that detail that a lot of the conditions a lot of people run into in a world where everybody goes to grad school and they're trained to just say mixed use is good, and the first floor is going to be retail, and a lot of buildings get built like that, but they don't have any future infrastructure for kitchen exhaust or kitchen or commercial element like that in general. I think this project is probably a little more extreme in that a lot of those cases. There was nothing in the building, that really was intended to be used for kitchen in the original design. So we ended up looking at multiple options, and there was a lot of direction, I think, from the LARCA board in particular, the wrestling community. And when we started the project, we had basically 2 or 3 elements that really were going to show up on the facade. We had a kitchen exhaust shaft that's here in the upper right-hand corner. That basically is installed today. There's a louver on this wall here. We needed to avoid the mural, and there was kind of a lot of other stuff going on. It ended up in a location around there. And there was also a refrigerant pipe. It's kind of a minor detail, but worth mentioning as well. Next slide, please. The ultimate duct starts to go in. Well, actually, before we get to what we did, we looked around the site for context, and we could see evidence of new kitchen equipment that had been provided. I think there's a pretty clear design intent on bringing things to the roof or adding things on the existing original building. Certain color palettes that we try to stay within. The general way you do the roof unit is, you have your exhaust fan, you put it on a roof, you have to. Some of these older fans, I think, are old because basically when we went through Fairfax County, we were told that we weren't allowed to do that unless we had fall protection elements, which would involve guardrails and screen, or like fall protection devices that you would see, and they would look like a big utilitarian handrail on top of the building. So we avoided that as well. Next slide, please. This is ultimately what we have today, and I don't think there's going to be anybody in the room that loves to see these pictures, but this is basically what is effectively on site right now. There has been a stop work order issued on the project, so the contractor hasn't been able to continue on. There's a lot of kind of loose things. Just it's really just incomplete, and it feels unfinished. Originally we went through the LARCA process, and we had thought about, like, it seems appropriate to have maybe a brick cladding or something like that around it. Eventually we ended up on, like a more don't try to make it an architectural element type of mentality. So we through LARCA, we were basically, they suggested to basically just have the duct exposed on the building, and we were going to paint it. It has not been painted to this day. It's shown in the original kind of what we call black. We kind of see the patina and the rust showing on it. That is the unfortunate reality that we're basically trying to fix. And when we saw this up there, we were like, okay, that's the right thing to do. So I think next slide, please. We can look at some of the overall context, and basically this is showing our ultimate proposed design. This drawing is a little bit technical. It's basically showing the floor plans. It's a fairly small space. We run the kitchen exhaust out towards the back, and we ended up running the makeup air unit out of the back, which is also what gave us that kind of louver on the wall. Next slide, please. This is more just kind of detailed plan information. The next slide, I think, is going to give us more of the 3D imagery. This is basically what we're proposing right now, and that is to effectively screen the duct in something that's like metal cladding. We're not trying to say that this architectural element is original. So I think, masonry in that regard is kind of like disingenuous, right? Because this isn't something that was there originally. Our thought now is basically a metal kind of wrap around this would actually provide a nice, more finished look that distinguishes the new ductwork from what was, originally not there in the original brick masonry on the walls. I can I could probably jump into detail later as needed. I'll just kind of keep moving forward in the sense of everyone's time. I guess let's just hit the next slide. And just kind of go through. Basically, there were a couple things during the process. Fairfax County said that we needed to bring the duct up 18 inches above the roof line, which is where it's installed today. And that requirement kicked in because there might be combustible construction within the roof. We don't know. There might be a 2x4 buried in there somewhere. So we were like, okay. Our thought is it costs for a premium in terms of the construction cost. Our proposal now is to basically have that duct wrapped in a fire wrap, which is like this kind of aluminum jacketed material that will let us put it down closer to the roof line. So it's not just popping up as quite as high above the building line. And we don't need that 18 inches anymore. Next slide, please. Here are a couple general material and kind of detail examples of what we're thinking. The Renabon company, Apollic, all these guys, they basically make an aluminum faced panel that you're probably familiar with. The finish is something similar to this. There's a sample next to what we have existing originally on some of the existing downspouts. On the upper level, we are proposing a screen wall that would be a series of aluminum and metal slats that basically go on a series of vertical posts, and it helps the equipment breathe, but it also blocks your view up into the equipment. Next slide, please. That might be it.
That might be it.
Yeah, I think that's it. So I guess I'm not familiar with the
Before we get to, obviously we'll do any members of the public that have comment. I wanted to give Daniel a second to give any county context on this, because obviously there is a prior completed work here. So Daniel, I don't know if you want to rate what you provided for the record.
As I have shared via email, the previously completed mechanical work was permitted. The process at the time, which was originally in 2021, was before the introduction of Plus. And so the routing to DPD Heritage Resources was not happening automatically for these types of permits. So it was not sent to us, therefore it was not sent to the ARB for review. There was multiple conversations with the Office of the County Attorney. Any retroactive review window closed, remains closed. So the scope of review is limited to the proposed new work.
Thank you, Daniel.
Mhm.
So we'll obviously have questions, but obviously next step is if there's any member of the public that wishes to comment on this item, and I'm gonna go around. So, all right, sir, you're more than welcome. I would ask you come up, introduce yourself. Yes, yeah, I'm just gonna do a parallel circle around the room. It's pretty much the only way to do
Ask
it.
the board to give me 2 minutes instead of one. I prepared a statement.
We voted for one, so we're gonna adhere to our,
I'm going to cut my statement. I just want to point out, since I only have 1 minute, on your website, get to it. You go to the Fairfax County website, I can find a document called Lake Ann Village Center Historic Overlay District Design Guidelines. Within this document, you will find multiple guidelines that have been violated and will be violated based on their conduct. So number one, preserve the spatial quality of the district. Guideline number 1.2, maintain alignment of building heights on all structures as seen from the plaza. The continuous edge of the roof lines is an important element in defining the space around the plaza. This violates that. Number two, protect the integrity of the historic structures by respecting their original design. Guideline number 2.7, building components should be similar in size, shape, and material to those already in use. This is in violation and will be. Number four, necessary service and mechanical structures should be compatible with the existing design. Guideline number 4.2, install mechanical systems with as little disruption of the original structures and design as possible. And guideline number 4.3, locate new mechanical features in inconspicuous places. All of that is violated here.
you want to turn that in? Obviously, if you have something written, you can definitely turn it over to.
Turn it in.
And did you, I don't remember if you stated your name for the record.
My name's Ramon Pardo. I live right in front of this monstrosity.
Okay.
Where can I turn?
You give it to Daniel, we'll make sure it's added to the ma'am right there. Again, if you could do your name for the record and then obviously.
My name is Marla Diaz. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Whitefoot Taylor and Preston. I represent the can of Reston Condominium Unit Owners Association. And this is in our common elements that this application has been submitted for. The association's board has not yet approved these modifications. The original application that came to Fairfax County in 2021 was approved by LARCA, but the construction that you see was not consistent with what was approved. And obviously, that does represent a significant eyesore that the association is very anxious to get resolved. We've not taken a position on this new application because we're interested in seeing what the ARB is going to do with this particular application, as the prior application was not reviewed by ARB as it should have been, frankly. So we're interested in seeing what the ARB comes up with in terms of this. And at that point, LARCA will make a determination as to whether or not it's willing to approve this particular plan. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Starting right here, going around through any other members of the public. Yes. I don't think I missed anyone in this rotation. Okay, sir, please make sure you state your name.
My name is Alec Berry. I live in the unit immediately above the Deli Italiano location, the unit that the proposed shaft will be attached to, and that the proposed fan and fencing will sit upon. I've lived here since 1999. I've lived in Reston since 1969. As everyone is aware, a series of mistakes by various committees, agencies, contractors, and architects has led to what exists now, which we understand is not a design that has been approved. This is not a matter for the ARB. Other entities and possibly courts will be dealing with that. I urge you to not even consider that it exists. Just look at the proposed plan versus the blank facade of the building originally. What is being presented to the ARB this evening will destroy the look and feel of the building and neighborhood. It is destroying property values and is just simply an eyesore.
Thank you, sir. Sir.
I'm Mr. Berry's attorney. Am I allowed to give to speak for a minute?
I don't see why not.
Okay, thank you. Hi, my name is John Cowherd. I'm an attorney with the law firm Cowherd PLC. I am the attorney for Mr. Alec Berry. I submitted a letter, and I trust that everyone on the board received a copy of my letter. I only have 1 minute, and I think the previous speakers have made some important points. What I would add is there is letters that were decision letters by the Lake Ann of Reston Condominium Association that deny the exhaust plan applications. And I would just like to, if I could submit these letters for
Absolutely provide
the board of my letter, because I think that it's important to understand that this is not simply like a commercial unit that can just stick exhaust shafts wherever they want. This is the front of Mr. Berry's house, and it's a common area, a general common area of this association. And the fact that LARCA has not approved what is for you today, or what, like, given the applicant the authority to come here on their behalf, I think really means they don't have standing. They're not the proper party to apply.
Thank you, sir. And then if you want to provide it to Daniel, he can definitely get it. And yes, to answer that question you brought up, any submissions that were provided to the ARB prior to the meeting, I believe it is 3 days prior, were all provided to Daniel, were then provided to all ARB members for our in our packets for submission. And look, just if there's any member, sir, just make sure to state your name.
My name is Steve Vickery. I'm a resident at LARCA. I'm also a member of the LARCA board, but I'm speaking only for myself tonight. This is the shaft. This is our newest landmark at Reston. This is what's at stake. The shaft was never approved by LARCA or by the Reston Association and was built only because of a glitch. I want our ARB to deny the application for screening for the simple reason that I don't want official approval by the ARB for a screening structure that so clearly violates the letter and spirit of the Lake Ann Historic Overlay District. Any screen big enough to hide this monstrosity will, by definition, be an assault on the architectural integrity of the building. In short, I want the shaft dismantled, but having approval from the ARB for screening will only make that job harder. Why? Because if the applicant for the screening gets his approval tonight, it will strengthen the argument that the shaft itself is legitimate. If only he can make it pretty. That will only make it much more difficult to get rid of this blight once and for all. I ask you to deny the application tonight and help us restore the facade of this historic building.
Thank you, sir. All right. I try to give everyone a chance to finish their sentence and not stop them at the mid-sentence. And I think that there's no other comments from members of the public on this application. Mr. Cheney, you probably want to come back up because obviously now we get to the members of the ARB. And if we have any,
I have a question.
oh, and if we have any comments or questions, obviously, again, folks, just make sure you let me know. I know we'll probably have lots. So Mr. Zellman, you've already told me you have a comment. So, yeah, you've got my ear
I
automatically.
have a question. I have a question.
Yes.
So, Mr. Key, we've seen some of this duct work going down the building. Does that only go on the Deli Italiano space, or does that also go on Mr. Barry's unit as well as it comes down the building?
That goes on the exterior side of the building and bypasses basically in the corner by the condos above it.
Okay.
If you want to look at, show the 3 axon, that's probably a good contextual view, or these are good too. So there's 2 condo units. Deli Italiano is basically down 1 level.
Got it.
Facing the plaza.
Mr. Kalinsky, and then I'll get to you, Ms.
I
Hammer.
just have a question. Does that mean that the unit above is a 2-story unit?
I think it's there's 2 1-story units above. 2-story. 2-story? It is 2-story. Okay, okay.
2-story unit, okay.
All right. Ms. Hammock?
I have a few questions, but you can give me short answers. No one is here from the restaurant? No one is here?
Yeah, they couldn't make it tonight.
Okay, is this a new tenant or an upgrade to an existing tenant?
I believe it is the latter. I don't know all the details, to be honest. I think they're basically taking the space, leasing it, and it used.
Was there a restaurant there prior to this?
No, ma'am.
It was a change of use.
It's a change of use.
So, do you have any images of what it looked like before this tenant took over the space with you today?
I have in the previous slide, right before this one, I think this shows actually one more slide shows some of the original. Yeah, here we go. This shows some of the original imagery before the shaft was installed. This is the view from Lake Anne with the condo units above.
Okay, so this is the side that the shaft is not installed on, but is that how you access the restaurant?
That's how you access. Correct. Yeah.
This is the back of the restaurant, but the front of someone's home
Correct.
where the shaft is? Could you show me where the residence enters their home in this picture?
Right in this area. There's basically doors within these archways.
And are there, at this time, before the shaft was installed, were there any mechanical units on the roof related to anyone else's home or anything?
I don't remember off the top of my head. It's been a little while since I was up on the roof. There must be mechanical units somewhere, but I don't.
Okay, all right, that's helpful. Thank you.
Good question for Daniel, I think. Any others from you, Ms. Hammock?
No.
Okay. Daniel, we got a question for Mr. Zellman.
Am I allowed to ask somebody who commented a question, not the presenter? Who commented?
I don't know the answer to that.
All right, well, I'm going to do it.
Okay, Mr. Zellman's going to do it.
Ms. Diaz, I have a question for you. Because I'm an attorney as well.
Yes, sir.
This helps me out. With the pictures provided, are you able to point out clearly for me where the common elements are that LARCA is responsible for versus what is personal to whoever owns a particular residence?
Sure. So everything you're looking at is common element.
Okay,
So.
because they're considered condos, so the exterior is all a common element.
Is common element.
Okay,
The interior is unit.
Got
And
it.
obviously, there's some other features that fit in the definition of unit, but what you're looking at is all common element.
okay. Thank you. That answers my question.
All right. Any other comments or questions? Mr. Burns?
I'm curious, when the existing dock was first installed, did it require an easement from LARCA since it's on their common space to be installed?
Not to my knowledge.
does that imply that LARCA approved it?
I was under the impression that LARCA did approve it.
I thought we had testimony from one of the,
I think at the current moment, based on Daniel's statement, is we're operating on the fact that we have a permit before us, and the prior permit for this was approved for the county system.
From the county
We don't
system.
now. The question about LARCA's process is another civic board. While they do have their authorities over their tenants and their residences, their board is not influential on our board. I don't know, Jason, if you want to speak.
Well, I just want to be clear for the record, Daniel, because I think I just want to be clear, but I think we have the same understanding, is that the county has approved a permit for both the exhaust fan and the ductwork, whether that was approved by LARCA or the Resident Association, that's not before us tonight. And what's before us tonight is the screening for both of those elements, the ductwork and the exhaust fan. Is that correct?
Correct, as well as additional, the louver is being
Right.
expanded. There's additional mechanical.
Some other ductwork on the roof and stuff.
Yes.
I can follow up. I'll make an observation. And oftentimes when you attempt to screen something, you create something that is more egregious than what's already there. And so I'm a little skeptical about a screen would make this issue go away.
Yes, Mr. Zelman?
Well, yeah, sorry, I don't have this many questions. That's rock and roll. Mr. Key, with the ductwork there, with the screening that's going to go around that, how far would it protrude out from the ductwork? How much more space would that screening take up?
The goal is to get it as small as possible. Maybe it's 2-inch channels and tubes. Maybe there's sometimes a 4 and we try to wrap around in the back. That kind of stuff. The instructions are to get it literally as tight as you're allowed to with the screening.
Okay.
Mr. Kalinsky, and then I'll get
Do
to
you have the dimensions on the ductwork? Do we know what the?
I believe we do. Yeah, you might have to. I might not be able to read them without my reading glasses, but I think they're here somewhere. There they are. On the to the right, I think, on this side. Yeah. So this it could possibly be tighter. We're hoping to get it tighter, but I think the dimension that was provided was basically allowing like 1 inch or 2 around to those wall support brackets.
We jumped to pages. If you could please read that dimension, I'm unable to see it from.
1 foot 11.5, and then an additional. Oh yeah, there it is. Okay, 5.5 on the outside, and approximately 2 feet, maybe 2 feet and some change on the inside of the project in terms of the projection.
You say 5.5 from the outside. Can you?
I think the existing duct in the frame is 2'5", and our expectation is it's probably somewhere in the magnitude of like 7 or 8 inches on the outside of that existing frame. So 2'5" plus maybe 8 inches.
So roughly 3 feet total?
So roughly 3 feet projection. Yes, sir.
All right, and the width of it, the width of the duct?
I think it's nominally square. I think it's 2'5" in one axis and about 2 in the other. So it's the width of it is that same 7 or 8 inches on both sides.
So the overall screen, the overall out on the screen is 3 feet by 3
Approximately.
in plan.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay,
I'm just gathering info.
Mr. Ollie.
Wanted to check, does our committee have jurisdiction to look at noise pollution that can be caused by the screen when it's attached that close to it? Or if you make a modification to a property, it does produce some kind of a disturbance to the environment. Is that something we need to consider, or it's just the aesthetics of the place?
That's definitely a question we can ask about. There are different factors that affect the integrity of a historic district like that we have. So sound is one factor, visual elements as well.
Because with such a big duct out there, I'm sure it is going to produce some sound, and when you put a screening on it, and if the screening is attached, then there is a possibility of that sound getting amplified by the screening, and is that something being considered?
We,
My knowledge, there's not a lot of sound that comes out of these. There's maybe 800 or so CFMs, so you're getting some vibration for sure, but I don't think it's going to be really audible through a brick wall.
But if you're outside looking at the structure, or you're trying to enter the building, would that be something that impacts any of the residents? I mean, it's a 24/7 sound, or maybe 10 o'clock in the night they shut down, but
It's
pretty much the whole day the sound would be there, right?
So the fan, it's for a kitchen exhaust fan. So the way it works is basically there's a row of ovens and they're cooking pizza in there. And then there's a fan over top of those kitchen apparatuses that pull off the greasy air, and it takes it to the roof and basically scrubs it around a little bit and releases it into the atmosphere. That process only happens when the fan is in use. So you definitely wouldn't have it late at night, but you're not even going to have it like at 2 or 3 o'clock unless somebody orders a pizza in the middle of the day. It's going to be mostly around like the mealtime.
Yeah, because from my experience, we just installed a hood in one of our church kitchens, and you can hear it. When that thing comes on, it is very powerful. It tries to put, and in a pizza oven, you're talking maybe 100,000 BTUs or more coming out of it. So that fan has to pull all that heat out of that place. From my own experience with what we have, I know it is loud. I mean, it does produce significant sound. And obviously, if that exists, that's not my concern. But if you add, something covering it, and the two together, do they amplify the sound?
Does it potentially vibrate? That's a great question. I think we'll ask and look into that, and maybe there's a way we can somehow dampen it with insulation, perhaps.
Mr. Zellman and supposed to know,
Yeah.
Mr. Burns.
I'm not so concerned, at least this evening, with the ductwork and the exhaust fan, because it's not before us. The screening is. But I have significant concerns with that screening because it's going to be necessarily huge and very visually noticeable to everyone. I hadn't considered the sound element. Holly, I appreciate that you have more knowledge about that than I would. Yeah, exactly. But I just wanted to say that the screening itself, I think, is significant, and I'm concerned about that. I'm just only speaking for myself, obviously.
Mr. Polinsky?
Well, two items. Do we know the construction type of the building?
We think it's 3B, which is why it triggered the combustible roof.
Okay. And the roof is, assuming it's a wood frame roof, it's not concrete? Is that?
There's a combination of concrete and wood throughout the site. There's a lot of the lower floors are concrete. Sometimes they would switch to wood at the top. I don't know that offhand.
All right, and then next question, the part of this application, if I'm not mistaken, is that the grill for the outside air intake, which is going to go along the arcade that you take to get to the other side. Okay. And what's the size? What's the physical size on that?
So 6 and 2 by 10 by an 18th.
So, okay, so just under 3 feet wide and 4.5 feet tall.
Are there any other louvers on that, like a similar louver at that location at the site?
We're looking at a picture that shows the louver that they have installed since they began their restaurant installation that is there now.
So there's
But it's going to be enlarged or moved, or you just want another one?
Couple, so, can we look at the photographs? I think maybe a couple slides early.
Look at you, John.
Yeah. The existing photos, I think there's one that looks down the breezeway. Yeah, so this is pretty good context. There's not a similar like larger louver element, but there are a couple things on, the base of the wall. Other mechanical penetration. So it's not like a totally bare wall. But we were basically trying to keep the louver as far away from the mural as possible, just to give it as much room as we could.
So there is a louver there now that you've installed that we didn't review for whatever reason, and now you need another one?
No, I think it's one and the same.
So we're not reviewing this louver because it's already been permitted
The proposed louver is larger than what is there now.
Okay.
at the same location?
Yes,
Why? Because it didn't meet their needs? No, it's okay.
my assumption is code requirements, but I do not.
Okay,
So,
yeah, sorry, go ahead. Ms.
so
Quincy.
on that existing photo at the east side there, the bottom right-hand corner, Jonathan, you able to zoom in a little? Can we see that louver on the wall?
Bottom.
That photo is before installation,
It's before installation?
but it's less than half of the height. What is there now?
Okay, well, so the picture I'm seeing here, just looking online, it seems that the upper right-hand corner of that louver is touching the bottom left-hand corner of what appears to be a projection or a planter up above.
Yeah, it's,
So really that photo should show existing conditions and not the conditions before a louver was installed.
And I'm sorry.
Jane,
And the application shows the louver moved to the left
Mhm.
on that wall. Is that the intent to relocate?
It basically, the original location looked great on the elevation and, it was fine. But I think when they got into this area, there's like a trash room down here. And there's a whole bunch of piping and things, so it basically moved over on the wall. From originally, it might have been shown farther over here, and I think it ended up in that area.
And it appears on your application, it's being shown a little bit further. Oh. It appears the right-hand jam of it lines up with the projection above. But the actual photo of what I see there, the louver's much higher. Are you lowering the head of the louver when you do this?
I think is there an elevation on the, I think there was an elevation at one point that should be in this package.
If I may be so bold, I took a picture just.
Oh,
now.
okay. We actually took some drawings out because we didn't want it to be too long. Yes, ma'am, that's it, exactly, yeah. So it's basically for the lower left-hand corner and touching the side of that projection.
See? Okay. But the application shows it not touching, it shows it's lower. My concern is when they get in there and they find out from the inside where the pipes are and aren't, and where they can cut through,
Mhm.
that they're gonna wanna shift it or move it. I'd be loath to approve something and find, based on where it's located on the drawing and find out that it's shifted and it's right up underneath that projection or too close to the ground, too much, wider, shallower, that there's some sort of field adjustment that may be made to accommodate construction, because that happens. I think I would want to know for certain that what's shown is actually where it's going to be placed and built.
And I believe the drawing that we have, and I'm not totally sure if it's in the proposal or the presentation tonight, I believe it is, but we can follow up on that and send it as an exhibit.
Are you good or?
I'm good.
Okay, Mr. Burns. I know you've been waiting patiently.
Yes, I have. Trying to remember what I was going to ask. But one of the questions I was going to ask is, you mentioned you're going to put fire insulation around the duct. Does that also have acoustic absorbing properties?
Absolutely will. Yep.
And does that only on the portion on the roof, or are you going to take it all the way down the duct?
By code, it would need to be provided on the roof, but we can certainly look at providing it all the way down, especially if
Making it even bigger than it's proposed.
that would be what we need to juggle. I don't want to commit to that, but it's certainly something we can look at. And I understand the noise concern. I think the loudest components in this assembly are the fans on the top and the bottom. The ductwork itself shouldn't have too much noise coming through it. But we can certainly look into that.
What is how many decibels does the unit and the unit at the top put out?
I don't have those technical numbers, but I can look that up. I have all the specifications and we can get that.
Because I agree with the other gentleman's comment that I think noise is an intangible issue here. We're talking mostly about visual intrusions, but I think a noise intrusion, I would guess that a duct, it's like a tympanum. You know, it just just rumbles all the time. And it's, yes, the duct doesn't put the noise out, but the noise travels through the duct. And then it gets bounded out. And so I think that's a real issue, particularly in the common area that it goes through.
Mhm.
So all the residents who need to pass by that location are already impacted by this. And I'm questioning whether or not the duct will make it worse, or excuse me, the cladding will make it worse, or if some insulation might dampen the noise, or and it's.
I think
There's a lot of unanswered questions in the presentation tonight. I think the questions that we've raised, you make me wonder if this is as complete an application as we need to be able to make an action on it.
John, Ms. Murray?
You also are intending to penetrate the wall around the corner from the louver for your 4-inch gas heater vent and your 2-inch gas vent. I walked that wall. There aren't any other penetration for things like that.
Okay.
Why? Do you need to penetrate the original fabric of the building?
With the gas line?
Yeah, why can't you? I saw others that looked like they were bolted to the ground. Come out of the ground and were bolted to the wall. These will be the only holes through that wall. Is there any alternative?
I'm not familiar with the exact gas lines that you're talking about.
Ms. Murray is referring to the vent. There's a 2-inch gas vent and a 4-inch water heater vent.
If you walk along there, there's a number of things that look like gas lines coming out of the ground, and they're braced against the wall.
Okay.
And I wondered why you all had to put in a hole and other people didn't.
I don't have the answer to that, and if those are our pipes, I'll certainly look into it and clarify.
Where are those two pipes currently vented?
I don't think they are because they haven't been installed yet, is my understanding.
Well, this is an operating restaurant.
No, it's not.
Not yet.
No,
Use.
it's never been a restaurant.
It was
Not yet.
retail.
It was retail before, but not a restaurant.
And the retail put in the existing duct?
No,
No, the
restaurant put in the duct when they took tenantship.
original permit that went through that did not come to us
So
installed the
this
duct.
is
In progress.
this is not a restaurant that's.
It is not an operating restaurant at this moment.
Okay.
No,
Thank you for the clarity.
no problem. I want to get Miss Orr, because I couldn't see her over Jason.
Yeah, because
But big.
I was thinking it was active and I'm very sensitive to vibration. And I'm just thinking this is gonna be, when it's on, you're gonna be like,
Keep in mind, Mr. Barry and I live right
Yeah.
here. That's our front door. Those are our bedrooms. And that's why our concern is.
oh gosh, I understand.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, I understand.
Anything else from UK?
No, that,
All right, Miss Hammock, you had your hand up.
You mentioned in your opening statement, this was a mixed use site. I would argue that it's more than a mixed use site, it's a community. So I'm disheartened that the restaurant is not here today and that they don't want to kind of do right by the community that they're going to be operating in. I studied this site in grad school. It's one of the first places I visited when I came to Northern Virginia. When I came back to Northern Virginia. So I don't think you're quite taking enough care with your application, just based on us answering questions and hearing your responses. If you put a louver in and now it needs to be bigger, that to me feels a little bit sloppy. Like, you want to get it right the first time because this is beige brick. Maybe it's not a big deal to you, but by shifting it over, you're removing historic brick. You're going to have to patch. You're going to have to match that brick. It probably won't match right unless you save. There's just all these things that matter. So if you need to enlarge that louver, I would prefer that it stay the same width and height, and you just extend down instead of shifting and having to remove more brick. a site like this looks so pristine after construction, and inevitably you do need rooftop mechanicals. I'm comfortable with visible rooftop mechanicals at this site. I don't support screening them because I think that it causes them to be more visible and more detracting, especially in such a geometric architectural idiom. Putting a rectangular louvered something on the roof, I think, will compete and detract from the modern architecture. So for anyone that came to us on this site, I would not support screening of mechanical units. I'd rather just see what it is and have it be honest. I do have issues with the vent as it's installed. I'm not sure I can comment on that today or if it's relevant, so I won't. And that's it.
All right, I've got a few. You all have been, so I agree with Ms. Hammock about the intake vent. That was probably one of the ones I was most particularly concerned about. And then knowing more that it's being, I guess, moved around, which is obviously, I agree with her concern in particular. That means more brick removal. That means more brick repair. And you can already see on the side of this already that facade repairs are inconsistent. And that means that's another factor that we would want to understand is what's the type of mortar going to be? How are you going to match? Because that's going to stand out even if the louver was a perfect, nice brown louver that would blend in seamlessly as you're walking down, because thankfully you're seeing this nice display. If it's all surrounded by very bad pointing and off color and bad brick, it's going to stand out massively automatically right there. This is intake. The other question I would have there, similar to my other colleagues, is about noise, because this is a pace that people pass through to enter Lake Anne. They come down from the Restaurant Association trails, passing through a quiet space into the Lake Anne, center space with the fountain for the J. You've got this historic display right next to it. And I don't think I understand what I, as a passerby who goes down that, unfortunately, with my stroller with my children, which isn't stroller accessible, but that's another issue, goes down that, and or how much are you going to actually be able to hear from that? I mean, we've asked the question about the ductwork being cladded, but from that area, I'd also really want some clarification as to what that intake is going to sound like, because I don't think I understand from the plans right here on that. With the existing ductwork and the cladding, I think I agree with my colleagues that while the approach of covering something with some type of cladding like this is usually the ideal way to go when you're covering up, some cable ducting or something like that, because it does match in with the gutters, the scale of this cladding is extensive. And so it stands out at such a dramatic level that I'm worried it's going to detract no matter what, regardless of whether or not it matches the color of other existing downspouts and tries to blend in. I also agree with Ms. Hammock. I'd rather not have screening up on the top. This board's been pretty clear about projections on the top of the roofs of Lake Anne, particularly also at Henry House, talking about the fact that they wanted to add existing cell phone tower covers and add more crenellations to the top of that building. We were against that because that created a false historicism of, oh, now we have enclosures on top of this building. I'd rather that be owned for what it is as a mechanical structure on top of a building. We got to modernize. We need to sometimes have mechanical structures. There's a lot of buildings that have had to adapt to the HVAC situations at Lake Anne. I'm willing to accept that reality, but the creation of that starts to set a precedent of, well, now we want structures and enclosures on top of this. I also wonder how many of those, adding that plus a mechanical unit, could the roof of this structure handle, because it wasn't designed for those. It was designed on a central cooling system. So that also creates another question there for me. So I think personally, I agree with Mr. Burns. There's a lot of unknowns here that doesn't, now that we've started looking through it, particularly related to some photography, understanding existing conditions. Thankfully, we had a member go visit the site, basically doing reconnaissance right before to have the picture of it. But that's not how the application should be. The application should show that information as presented, and that's not existing conditions for me. So I'm having a hard time understanding what we're approving. Just to kind of forecast that out, the board has several options when we take up something for action. We can obviously approve it. We can approve it with modifications, which in some cases, if we can agree on certain treatments and methods, we can sometimes do that. However, when they start to get excessive, the ability to agree with modifications becomes dangerous, because that means we're going on a lot of good faith that something would be done exactly how we discussed in the meeting here. And we've learned in the past that's not the best way to conduct business, because there's not a lot of concrete evidence and plans. We can also defer And obviously we can deny. Defer means we're saying you should come back because we don't think it's sufficient. Deny, obviously self-explanatory. So I just wanted to forecast all that since all my other members had a lot to say. I want to get my little bit in before we take anything up. Mr. Ali, you seem like you had one other thing.
This may be minor, I'm not sure it has a major impact. But when you look at the way the duct is attached to the actual building structure, right? And now you're gonna put a screen on it that gets attached to the building structure. That duct is gonna vibrate. If somebody has a bedroom and they have a hanging frame inside, you will feel the vibration. It's just a fact of life. I mean, I don't know how tolerable that is, or does the screen amplify it? Because if it exists and there is a vibration, obviously that's not within our view. But maybe that's something also to think about. I mean, people are living there and that wall, the duct is attached to, and it's going to create some vibration.
Any other comments from members or questions? So I would leave the question first to you. Obviously, we're going to take up an action, but as the person representing the application, you can always request that we take up a motion to defer because there are several items that we've asked for additional information about, and we could take up that motion, which means you would have to come back and resubmit for another application at another meeting. Or if that is such your prerogative, you can ask us to take a motion one way or the other. But I always ask the applicant if they'd rather we vote to defer.
I think we need to get some of the details organized, and I think this presentation, taking some slides out was a bad idea, quite frankly, and I apologize for that. I think we need to take some of the images back, give more existing context. That louver, we need to show exactly what we're proposing. We don't have that information right now. So I think at a minimum, we should defer on at least some matters. I think unfortunately, the applicant wasn't able to make it tonight, and now I'm going to want to come back with them. I think that's something that needs to be done. And I think for that meeting, just looking ahead, I would like to see if there's a more kind of, I guess, a formal opinion on the actual treatment of the duct. Is a large screen better than having it raw and exposed, or is it, like, I think our concerns are the same as yours. And this wall was never, I mean, it's not a fortunate place to have a duct end up, and it ended up here for lots of reasons. But now if we want to see, all right, there's a duct on the side of a building, how is it going to be the best duct it can possibly be? Then is that through a screening, or is that exposing it and maybe painting it a more compatible color?
We're design professionals. I would love to know the reasoning for why that duct is there. So when you come back, if you could walk us through that.
Okay.
And I would not have approved a rust-covered duct. I've never seen a duct weather like that in 3 years. I've seen a lot of mechanical equipment with a matte galvanized finish that does not rust like that. So I was somewhat shocked to know that that was just 3 years old. And anywhere on a historic district, I would never approve visible mechanical work that would have that patina. So I don't know if it matters that I feel that way at this point, but if you're coming back, I would personally like to know how it ended up there, the reasoning, the rationale, et cetera, because I think we can all understand it, and it would just be interesting to hear. Because we may have another restaurant at a retail space in this area, and they will have the same issues. So I would like to become literate on those issues.
All right, Ms. Mangum.
Well, the question that occurred to me is exactly that. So when something like this gets attached to a building and then there might be a screening applied to it, has LARCA or the association determined, does that then become a common element? And who is responsible for the long-term maintenance of it? Because I think issues like that, given the weathering and the aging that occurred here, when you keep adding more and more and more, what is the long-term management plan for that? And so I would suggest, if possible, that, further consideration of this include some consideration about what the long-term management of these types of features are, and really clarify whose responsibility they will be for the long term.
Right, like, 'cause what if the restaurant closes and then this is on the building? That's a really good point.
That was a discussion early on, and I was under the impression that we had a conditional approval from LARCA only if this restaurant, as long as they exist, would the duct be approved. If they ever closed up shop or moved out, then the duct would have to come down along with the associated cladding. And that's something that I think the ownership was okay with.
I,
I think John had his
had
hand
John
up.
first, yeah.
No, go ahead, Chase.
I was just gonna say, because I think you asked for our opinion about screening in the future.
Sure.
Well, for me personally, I think you're gonna have a hard time getting my vote for screening because of the scale, I think, and the intent of our guidelines in this historic overlay district. I would have personally a hard time agreeing to that because it's a lot.
And to your, I guess, to that general question, the board's not monolithic. Each one of us is here. We each would have our vote on that subject. I think you've heard a lot of different opinions about, concerns about the scope and scale of any type of wrap or any type of, protection or wrapping around this ductwork. Obviously, we're working with the existing permit for the actions that we have to respond to. And so we're dealing with an element that obviously has a legacy that we have to work with. And so that's the other challenge. So the big thing that we would be looking for from an applicant is creativity in how you're attempting to work with those constraints that you're operating within. Because I agree with my fellow members, it's difficult to fathom how we can make this look appropriate in some particular way. Yes, Mr. Johnson.
The only other thing I wanted to bring up is I do think the applicant also has the ability to withdraw their own application if they want to. Is that right, Daniel? Do they have that ability?
You can, choose to defer.
Do we have to vote if they?
No.
Okay.
Sounds like.
I'm not part of this, but just throw out. Change the ductwork to where it nestles back into the corner and have a half round stainless steel so it actually reflects the surrounding area to kind of throw into the color of the building and trees in front of it or whatever, that it would become a part of it instead of being such a blatant eyesore of a square thing. Just make it a half round.
I appreciate the comment. I'm going to stop you there, though. So I think moving forward, we can either take up an action to defer it ourselves, or you can say you're withdrawing.
We will defer.
Okay, so we do need to take up a motion though, correct, Daniel, to defer it? Okay, so I would entertain a motion. Mr. Burns.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I move that the ARB defer action action item ARB 24-LKA-01 located at 1631 Washington Plaza, Suite 1631, Reston, tax map 0172311631 in the Lake Ann Village Center Historic Overlay District as submitted and presented at the June 13th, 2024 ARB meeting. The motion to defer is due to the lack of adequate information to take an action on the proposal.
All right, we have a motion to defer. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Moore. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Keeney, and thank you everybody in the audience who's participating for public comment for your candor and professionalism. All right. Woo. 7:30.
Idiot.
So we're moving on to ARB 24 DRT 01. That is 11819 Leesburg Pike Garage. Tax map 063010018A in Drainsville Tavern Historic Overlay District. The applicant is proposing to construct a steel frame 2-bay garage on the property. Mr. David Harrison represents the project. Harrison,
I apologize for
that's
there.
quite all right.
I'm David Harrison. I live at 11819 Leesburg Pike, which is within the outskirts of the Drainsville Tavern property line. The actual boundary for the dark line, I guess you all know, for the tavern, so I'm including the outside. So I'm asking for permission to build a 2-car, all steel garage. The siding as far as, if you want to get another one. Proximity to it, you can't even see the tavern. My house is here. Tavern is at the other end of that road over there. It's blocked by the barn. There's a 6-foot fence between me and the barn, which is the red roof road, and then woods So there is no visual impact of what I want to build, which is just a single story two-car steel garage. The next slide. It's going to be, the garage itself will be built right next to where my house is. This is where I propose it. Guess your screen gets bigger just because. Cool. Right. Like I said, there is no visual impact screen. That's the front of my house. I'm proposing to have the siding. They do have a color of siding that runs, looks just like that siding in the steel, dark blue, so it'll match the house and blend in. Next screen. That's from my driveway side, and the shadow's a little bit where you can't see where I want to put it. Next screen. Right there is as you go straight into the drive of the garage, the red line is where it will set on the existing pavement. Actually, that's from the side of the house. Yeah, that's from straight through. If you look through, you can see all the woods that screen me from the barn next door. And there's a wood fence 6 foot up that's in between us. You can just barely see the barn, which has been converted to a house about 8 or 9 years. Next screen. Yeah, that's just a front view of where it's going to go. Approximately, it's 25 by 35 foot, 2-car. Next screen. That's their rendition from the salespeople, what the front's going to look like. I tried to, everything's upgraded, upgrade steel, architectural doors. The side facing my house, existing house, will have 1 small door and 2 windows. The other side will be 2 small windows to make it look more like a actual built garage instead of just a steel shed. Trying to get it to blend in as much. I've lived in this house since 1981. I bought it, which interestingly enough is 100 years after the date that my grandparents bought the Drainsville Tavern, or my great grandparents. Sammy Jenkins bought it back in 1881. I own a garage across the street, Drainsville Auto Service, that my father built in 1946 on the spot where my grandparents had a little country store that sat there. My daughter actually lives in my grandma's house right now with my 3 granddaughters, or 2 granddaughters and grandson. So I'm not going anywhere. I'm not trying to make something look crappy. I'm trying to get something that'll just blend in with the house, but be actually economically feasible for me to do. I don't know if there's anything after that.
Okay.
Well, that's just the kind of a view across the street where the subdivision. My house is on the left, the Drainsville Tavern is way down the side. You can see all the woods in between. So like I said, we don't impact the tavern at all. You can't see it from one side or the other. So it's, I'm just asking permission to, this is just all the specs I sent in with the county showing what it was going to be in the siding and all, but that's their generic stuff.
Okay.
So that's about it. Just trying to get permission to put it there.
Understood. I will ask if there is any member of the public that wishes to comment on this one. Man, all my public went away. So seeing as there is no member of the public that wishes to comment on this one, we can go straight into member questions or comments.
I have a question.
Yes,
Can you
Mr.
go
Moore.
back to the historic overlay district? And this red element, you said is the barns,
This red
Mm.
is McFarland's barn.
the one that's right next to your lot?
Yes, right. This is my
That-
house.
Isn't that part of the historic district, that barn?
Pardon me?
Isn't that barn part of the historic element?
It's within the line goes right down between us for the inner one.
It is historic element.
Yeah, it's a contributing resource to the district
Distributing, yeah.
and the district. Or
On McFarland's farm. That was converted to a house and then they built a whole subdivision around along on the 5 acres that were.
And what he's referring to is there's that district core and then there's the outer district boundary. And so the farm is just the line for the core district. And then, oh, there you go. We got
Okay.
there you go. Now you can see it on that map. That shows it much better.
it is an HOD. It's just right outside the.
I'll say there's screening between me and it, the trees that are there, and they put up
a wooden 6-foot fence between us years ago. Previous owners had it.
Yeah, well, I'm looking at our historic overlay guidelines. Designing new construction to be compatible and complementary to the existing character of the historic district. And I don't see a steel building anywhere. The barns are not steel, are they?
Well, they have a steel roof. They do have a metal roof on the barn.
Okay, but the sides are wood.
Um,
The sides are wood,
actually, cinder block.
cinder block. Okay.
Yeah, because it was a barn.
Yeah.
And there really is, I mean, I'm not sure why they have it designated in the powers that be, I guess. For a long time, it was just a storage unit for some guys that did gutter work, and then another guy that was a builder that finally converted it and built the 5 other houses down along the way.
Mhm.
And if you look actually at the overlay, it includes quite a large area that surrounds all the way around. I mean, I can't tell you what kind of garages or houses or whatever they have built along this back subdivision here. They're more modern homes. Some they were 20-some years ago, 25 years ago in a modern mode. Good. But I tried to design it, get it designed to look like a normal garage to blend in. The materials really should be kind of irrelevant. It still has the lap siding up the side of it to where it has the look of normal siding
You said,
and not just a steel building with straight up and down.
you said there was, the siding was steel,
At least, yeah, the sides of it are steel, but it's lap siding. It's,
the siding, I'm sorry.
I don't,
Okay, so I misunderstood what you're saying.
Corrugated steel.
pardon me,
It's corrugated steel running horizontal instead of vertical.
but it looks like the siding on my house, yeah.
But it's, wait, I don't want to, I'll let someone, it wasn't my turn to speak, so I'll wait.
It's Marie.
I'm,
And then I'll get you, Ms.
I
Kim.
understand what you're trying to do and what you're trying to say, but we're also concerned about the approaches to the district.
Other what?
The approaches to the historic overlay district, to the tavern and the other contributing structures, which include the barn. And your house is right there on Route 7. So as you go up, approaching or coming past, your metal barn.
Well, it's not right on,
Yes, it is right on Route 7.
I mean, it's not sitting up on the road. And it is separated in front of my house, which I don't show pictures here, is a 30-foot stand of leaflet cypress that go all the way across the front of my house. So you can't actually even see my house from Route 7. You can see through the driveway. So yes, you could see the garage. But from my driveway, you can't see the tavern. And once you pass the tavern, the only way you can see the tavern is when you're right in front of it.
But what I'm trying to say is we're not necessarily concerned that it's not inside of the tavern. We're concerned that you see it on the way to the tavern, on the approaches to the tavern. You haven't provided anything to us that shows that you have trees, shrubberies.
Well, I did.
That's.
I guess I didn't. I was trying to
I'm
get.
trying to make a nuanced distinction, and I understand, yes, we can't see it from the tavern, and definitely the house is back behind on Sugarland Road. We don't worry about them because you definitely don't see them going to the tavern. But your property, we do. And I have concerns, yes, the community, the nature is supposed to be semi-rural. So a steel barn, a steel garage would be fitting with semi-rural. So I'm sort of divided on how they handle this.
Well, the barn is pretty. But, okay.
Samick, you had.
I'm concerned with things that are visible from the public right of way. And I did look on Google Earth, and this is totally screened by your trees, which we don't regulate and could be cut down tomorrow, and we'd have no say. So I would like to approve something at this site that I'm comfortable being seen from the public right of way. I think your house is lovely. It's not from the same period as the historic homes, but it arguably is visually compatible. And I am comfortable with a large 2-car garage at this site that's visible from the street. if the materials and design of the garage were in keeping with your house. If I was doing an architectural survey and came up upon what you're proposing, I would describe it as a steel prefab shed, because that's what it is. And I'm comfortable with hardy plank or a material that's not wood, so I would say lots of positives. I'm comfortable with a large 2-story garage here, but not out of steel, and not how you presented it today. I would be comfortable with something like this at your auto shop because it is industrial in nature, but your home is not an industrial site. So I think I'd like to see you, I know I'd like to see you come back with revisions in material and design.
Let me ask this, could it be the same steel garage, but with normal siding on the front for the visual side of it?
I don't know how you,
I mean, it's still got the
I mean-
framework on the front. It would just have,
I don't think that would look right. I think we understand that that's not how it's constructed. I think you could do, I mean, I'm not in the business of prefab sheds, but I hope that you can find something that meets your budget prefab, and also meets our criteria for something that can be seen from the street theoretically. So.
Yes, Mr. Kalinsky.
Okay, I'll for Mr. Harrison, just,
Okay.
I think that the issue with a steel shed is you have very little detailing at the eaves and the soffits. It's generally metal to metal, and it doesn't read in a residential nature that the house does. So if this manufacturer or somebody else has a detail they can adjust to do that, I think we'd certainly consider that. It doesn't, it's coming across as too utilitarian for the residential property that it is. If it read more like an old barn, but an old barn has some of that same sort of overhang and weather protection for the siding and the joints where the roofs come out a little bit more or the sides project, whether it's a few inches or a few feet even on a barn. And I think if you could get it to that level that we can see that, I think it's not necessarily the structure of it. It's how the details come together and whether that's appropriate to the site.
Mr. Burns?
Yeah, in your presentation, you described that your family has had a long association with properties in this section of Route 7, in Dranesville Tavern itself. And family members have lived there and stuff. And so you're very familiar with the land area, the type of constructions that's used in the area. The question that was first thing that came to my mind, why steel? Now, let me go on from that, because there is a range of materials that would be more compatible with your house. And you alarmed me a little bit when you said you were hoping to put the same steel siding on your house.
No.
That will be on the shed. Well, you said that,
no, I said the same color siding on my house.
but you said it would be steel.
No.
So that's what I thought I heard.
Okay, no.
I'm glad that it won't be
No.
steel. But I think that this is a material that is incompatible with the historic character of the overall district. And that's would be my primary objection to it. And I agree with Mr. Kalinsky, the way in which a steel prefab building is detailed is that there's no architectural distinction to it. It's just planar surfaces, minimal overlap, just enough to shed water. And that, your house, you can see there's a lot of architectural detail there that would not be on this new construction.
My house was originally a brick rambler without the front porch when I bought it in 81. 4 years later, I put the second floor on and the garage on and the porch on and added all that, trying to bring it up to my family, but.
And am I correct in looking at Google Street View that there is a lower level garage in the west or the north addition of the house?
Would that be the other side? There's
Oh,
a
that
level
side.
this side.
Your driveway goes in, is there a garage under it?
Yes, on this side, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And then there's like a sunroom on the other side. And on the other side, the house next to the lot is just a prefab home.
Okay. And then my last question was, I noticed that you had the vertical dimension on your specs was 12 feet, but your door height is considerably less than that.
Well, it was.
What's the intent for extra volume above the tallest object you can get in there?
It was mostly so I could put I made that big enough to put in 2 cars. I have a couple of antique cars. And then the backside was going to be a workshop for my woodworking. So I just had height so I could get shelves up to stack on, just to give it use for growing.
Okay.
Not
Just want to understand.
tramped in, yeah.
Mr.
Mr.
Zelinski.
Harrison, is it possible to shift the garage further back away from the street?
No, because my septic field's behind that.
Okay.
I had to stay,
I think that would,
stay 10 feet from the septic field.
Yeah.
It actually,
I think that would help
where it
us.
sets is right where there's a fence that runs along the backside of my house, and it just backs right up to the fence, separating it from the backyard. So.
I'm more torn than Ms. Murray is about this because this district is described as having a rural character, and being a Georgia boy in nature, rural is steel construction. That is a type of garage you would see in rural Georgia, and I'm sure you might see in rural parts of Virginia. So it's not inconsistent, I would say, with the theme and the setting there and that mindset. I also, in thinking about the district, and obviously we are working with our 92 guidelines, not our eventual new guidelines. Most of them are focused around the tavern and the preservation of that. We also have Route 7, which is, I'm sure many of you know, quite a massive road. So it's not as though it is a meandering rural road where you would get a chance to reflect, unless you're in traffic, which does happen, and you could reflect more on creatures on the side of the road. But on the other cases, you're not spending a lot of time. So I could see the argument for saying, yes, it would be, I think it could be a much lovelier structure made, using wood siding and actually constructing something that felt, much more akin to the adjacent house and has pulled some elements from the district overall to try to draw those themes. But I can also see the work of having a steel garage. The fact that instead of doing vertical, you're saying you're going to do horizontal. That to me is a little bit of a step right there. I don't necessarily see it as overwhelmingly detracting, because I also feel like the work done on the barn right next to it turned into a house we'd have a lot of thoughts about that one too. There's a lot of changes there. The tavern, when I think about this district, because it's so focused on the tavern itself, I don't know if I'm trying to see what the gain is here in the long run. Like, I feel like we're almost trying to design a structure to feel historic when it shouldn't at the same time. So that's my personal take on it. I think I just wanted to share those observations there. If it does come up for vote, I don't think I'm necessarily against it.
Can I say the tavern is actually not open to the public? It's just a visual thing from the outside. It's, I think, maybe for rent, for conventions or weddings or whatever, but it's not a weekly, it's not open during the week or in the weekend. You can't tour it without
It's definitely a challenge we juggle with these smaller historic overlay districts, just like Roby's Mill. Roby's Mill is not accessible to the public, but it is a vista and a space that when you pass through that overlay district, you get to enjoy when you pass through it. So there's a lot of factors for each. The county has some very unique overlay districts, from the one we had a minute ago, which is obviously a mixed use community, to the one you're residing in. So there's a lot of challenges to balance for each of them. And also we're operating a set of guidelines that are from 92, hopefully to be rectified. Any other comments, questions? Yes, Mr. Burns.
Two things to follow up on what you said. We say that we use the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation in our evaluations. And the one standard says for new construction, it needs to be compatible and differentiated. And that's a pendulum that kind of swings back and forth. Certainly, this is differentiated. And the question is, does the massing, general visual appearance and such, is it reasonably compatible? Where do we fall in that back and forth of a pendulum? And then a question for staff. The applicant mentioned that the contributing barn was converted to a house.
Yes,
Was that something that came before us for review and approval?
I can look into that. I do not know. It is in the draft design guidelines that it has been converted to residential. So we were aware of it as recently as 2021.
But in my tenure, I don't recall that coming before us. I was just curious,
I can look into that.
particularly with regard to the last one we had about things falling through cracks. Wonder about that.
I suspect that predates you because the houses that were built around it were, I think, already standing when you joined this board.
That long ago?
I think that,
Wow.
Thinking-
That was last century.
no, that was,
Thinking at the topic at hand, Daniel can definitely field truth for our question about the McDonald barn and outbuildings.
but basically I'm saying it's likely it's before your time and my time.
Okay.
But with the one we have up in front of us, I guess I would put I'd put the question if there are any other comments or questions from members.
Just one, Mr. Harrison, the circle that you have on your garage, it's filled with shrubbery. Do you intend to keep that in order, or you don't need it?
It sits to the side. It's about 6 foot from,
Are you still gonna have access to your side load garage?
pardon me,
Are you still gonna have access?
coming around the upside of the garage, upside,
Okay.
around the upper end and then pull into it, yeah, back to it. Step back in anyway, so.
Right. Well, if there are no more comments, I would entertain a motion one way or another on this application.
We defer it.
We could vote to deter it. Usually we ask the applicant if they'd like to defer it. That would be we asked the last applicant that. I usually like to give the applicant the choice whether or not they want to vote to be taken on it for approval or denial, or if they wish to defer as the prior applicant did. So that'd be a question to you, Mr. Harris.
Well, let's ask Mr. Harrison, do you think you'd be able to bring us back further detail or refinement?
I can get hold of the,
Yeah, do you think they'd be able to offer that?
building to see if they have a different design for, or give me a more definite,
It's really a two-part question. One, would they be able to do that? And are you, as the property owner and applicant, willing to do that too? I mean, we could ask you to do that, but as an applicant, it is your house, it is your property. So, I just want to make that clear that,
I want to make it as visually pleasing as possible, which is why I went to do as much trouble as trying to find the type siding and the doors and changing the angles and all on it. And if it's at all possible, I would have them do a larger overhang on it. I guess my problem here is then it's another month down the road before we get going, and I know it's a leap. And from those pictures, I don't know if it can actually, and if in actually,
I think what I'm hearing in some of our members
drawings, if they show the overhang, the eaves, if they show it, how it's actually built.
I think what I'm hearing from some of the members is it's more of particularly a material question, if I'm understanding, the material selected for it. For some of us it would be better if it were a more consistent material with other properties. I think that's what I'm hearing. We're divided as a board. We're not necessarily consistent on this. And so the question is, could your contractor do something that is more, using wood elements and something like that? I think that was close to what I think Ms. Hammock was suggesting. I think, I don't want to, I'm just trying to paraphrase you.
Do we have the votes to approve it as presented today? Because that's what
I was just going to want.
That's what we should first decide.
Well, I was just going to say the applicant, if I know you're concerned about the delay, I don't know how the vote's going to go. I mean, if we voted to deny, there's nothing that prevents you from coming back again. But it might get approved. I don't know.
We need someone to make a motion.
Right.
And I am not allowed to make motions. So someone's got to put one on the table for us to take.
I mean, if at all possible, I will go to them and ask them to have a 1 foot overhang on either side, just to make it look like a more conventional roof. And it may have that. I'd have to look at the structural drawings that they sent along with to show what the overhang is, whether it actually shows a eaves or if it's how much the overhang is.
The detailing shows an overhang, but it's not dimensioned.
Not very,
And it appears to be say minimal, 4 inches, maybe in the best case, 6 inches.
And they can make them all
Well,
different.
If I,
The sheds come in all different sizes, so I imagine that they could probably make the trusses a foot long wider.
well, and sorry, Mr. Harrison, for interrupting here, but there is actually a 6 inch eave shown on the front of it. And that's the thing that I'd be most concerned of. And I think the 6 inch would be adequate. So I'm much more comfortable after seeing that.
Mr. Burns.
Yeah, overhangs, I think would help. Also trim. What, and then when they put windows in, they call panning. There's their frame, not just, 1/4 inch of turned over edge of steel as the frame for the openings.
Yeah.
Your house and all the other properties in that vicinity have trim around openings.
Exactly.
And I think that would also help.
Let me ask this, how about if I put, shoot,
Don't think any material should be,
gutters on it.
I don't think applying a material to the steel is gonna look right. I think we either have to say a steel is okay or a different construction method.
Well, I wasn't proposing a different material. I was hoping that there was a
Yeah. No,
detail.
not you, the applicant mentioned maybe you could,
I think the white trim around the front, the garage doors, which is all that's going to be visible from the road anyway, is probably a 2 inch wide.
It's
white
pretty
trim.
minimal. Okay, all right.
Pretty standard. The windows are probably about 1 inch wide, but I mean, but they're not seen from the road.
Would entertain a motion from any member who wishes to make one. Don't feel,
I'll make a motion
by all
to
means.
approve the application as presented. Mr. Chairman, I move that the ARB approve action item ARB 24-DRT-01 located at 11819 Leesburg Pike, Herndon, tax map 0063010018A in the Drainsville Tavern HOD for the proposed construction of a garage as submitted and presented at the June 13th, 2024 ARB meeting. Oh, upon review of the materials, the proposal is found to meet the requirements zoning ordinance 3101 historic overlay districts.
We have a second. Seconded by Mr. Burns. All right, I think we have to do a roll call vote on this one.
I think,
Oh, go ahead, Ms. Hammock.
I guess I would recommend that you come back to us with some changes.
Pardon me.
I would recommend,
Well, that would be what, if you're putting a motion up for us to potentially approve, then
Yeah.
we should vote on it.
okay, well, the motion is to approve as stated.
And then we got a second it. So, but I'm suggesting we need to do a roll call then.
Okay.
I have a feeling that this is going to be a numbers count. So Mr. Zellman's going
That's
to.
me.
Can I make a friendly amendment? Because on the drawings, there's 2 types of eave condition or soffit conditions. One is a bent bow, which is a rounded over edge, which I presume you don't want.
No, that's not.
And the other one is what they call an A-frame A-frame boxed eave.
Right.
Can we condition it on the A-frame boxed eave? So
I mean, that's,
Going to have the
Might have
subject
to-
modification to.
Subject to the fall, yeah.
that's what's on my list of, there's a spec list there somewhere, and that's on the spec list, having the box eave. I think I put the spec list in there.
We can definitely, you could make that a modification if that's.
well, if it's on his spec list, I'm comfortable with that, particularly since we're aware of it. He's aware of it.
It's not on that page, but there should be another page with all the, what was being, the type siding, the type steel. It's just like that one either.
Is it called out on the invoice?
That's what I'm looking at.
I'm not seeing it on the invoice.
So it didn't get put in that packet.
Okay. Well, let's do a subject to.
Would you state it since you have the right detail in front of you,
Okay.
please?
Don't anymore. But that's, it's okay.
There you go, Steve, you're looking for,
So is this a substitute motion then?
no, you're looking for amendment. It's asking.
Friendly amendment.
Steve, yeah. A frame with a box, Steve.
Yeah, we're switching it to it,
So
moving it down to this category now.
Okay, so
you're adding the amendment to say, subject to the following modification, which is that the garage be constructed with,
the garage soffits be constructed with the A-frame with boxed eave option.
Yeah, the other roof is actually a rounded roof. So
Okay.
it's actually got this,
so that is
this
the
roof. This is the one that is would be this
friendly amended for the
other one is off
modification.
Ditch's condo.
And
Second.
you accept this friendly and you second. Okay, all right, that motion is, amendment is made with the acceptance by the original maker and the seconder. Now we shall vote. We will go around, we'll just go around the horn. So Ms. Hammack,
Yes.
yes, okay. Ms. Juan,
Yeah.
Mr. Burns,
Yes.
Ms. Orr, Mr. Zellman,
No.
Mr. Daniel is yes. Mr. Zelinski,
Yes.
Ms. Murray, Ms.
Yes.
Meng, Mr. Ali.
Yes.
All right.
8-2.
Motion carries 8-2. All right, there we go. Thank you very much, Mr. Harrison.
Thank you all very much.
Appreciate it. 8 o'clock. Okay. All right, so we are on to ARB item 24, HOL 14-2113 Mason Hill Drive alterations. This is in the Holland Hills Historic Overlay District. The applicant is proposing interior alterations on both floor levels, exterior alterations to the windows, doors, structural modifications, conversion of an existing screen porch to an interior space, and replacement of the deck and entry stair. Michael Cook and Gisela Rua represent the application.
Perfect.
Oh, perfect. And before we get to you, I know Mr. Burns has a statement he needs to read.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I, John Burns, under Virginia Code Section 2.2-3112B1 and 2.2-3115H, declare my personal interest in transactions brought before the Architectural Review Board involving the Holland Hills HOD, and specifically state the following for the June 13th, 2024 ARB meeting. 1. Action item ARB-24-HML-14 at 2113 Mason Hill Drive alterations involves the Holland Hills Historic Overlay District. 2. The nature of my personal interest is that I own and reside in a home that is valued at over $5,000 and is located in the Holland Hills HOD. 3. I'm a member of a group of 3 or more persons who are members of which are affected by the transaction. And 4. I am able to participate in the transactions fairly, objectively, and in the public interest. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, Mr. Burns. All right, floor is yours.
So I'll start. Let me just say that my name is Gisela Rua. I'm, my wife and I own 2113 Mason Hill Drive. And I appreciate the opportunity to come and share with the board our family's motivation and the context for doing this proposed renovation. And then Michael Cook will present the details of the project. So let me say that, first of all, we welcome the work of the ARB. We voted for the HOD for our neighborhood. We value Holland Hills. We looked for 2.5 years for a home in Holland Hills, and we finally found one in 2018. So we're happy as a family in 2018, since 2018. And the reason we're doing this renovation now is that unfortunately we had a very damaging water leak in our home that then was combined with having to do asbestos remediation. And sadly, the result of all of this was that we lost our kitchen. We have no working bathrooms. We lost a wall in our laundry room, and we lost all the flooring in our lower level. So, we have a lot to rebuild. The reason it's been taking us quite a bit of time is that we've been on a protracted battle with our insurance company. That's still ongoing, but we have to move on. We need to be back in our home, and we need to do that, to bring stability to our children. We're a young family. We have 2 boys. Our 6-year-old just lost his first tooth yesterday, and our 18-month-old is into and on top of everything. So we need to be back. And so Let me just see what I have prepared to tell you about. Okay, so, this is a very difficult situation and we're trying to make something positive out of this. We have to rebuild our home, and in that rebuild, we are proposing a few additional things. We had hoped to do more expensive remodel down the road, but we have to do it now. And so we are more limited by our budget. We have a smaller budget, but our focus is on the things that our family needs. And what our family needs right now is we need an expanded modern kitchen. We need office space to work from home. We need more storage, and we need updated bathrooms. And so we are very excited with the project that our brilliant architect came up with, all these proposals. And we're looking forward to, hearing your thoughts. And I am happy to answer any questions in the Q&A, but I'll let Michael talk about all the details of the project.
Thank you.
So the first slide, please. I'm Michael Cook, and I'm here for Cook Architecture and obviously for Brooke. This picture here is actually really helpful. This is showing the modifications to the building. The actual Charles Goodman house was built in 1968, and it is back in this area. All of these improvements here happened in 1975 by architect Tom Kearns. Very good architect, very talented architect, but done prior to the time when people were really focusing on Holland Hills and Charles Goodman's architectural legacy. Obviously, he had more of an idea of his own vision of what the house and the modification should be. So it's clearly like a 1970s modernist style. This is helpful because what we were proposing to do is to remove all of this low wall, and actually it's all exterior space. We're not exactly sure the purpose of that wall, but we would like to remove this. And then this is a screen porch. We would like to enclose this screen porch. These windows are not at the Charles Goodman module, which is 3 foot 1.5 on center. It's a little bit smaller, but we don't want to modify the roof shape at all. So in this area, I'll talk about those improvements in a second, but a lot of the structure and the frame of the building needs to remain. The other thing that we would like to do is this is a guardrail for a deck here. We're proposing to expand the deck by about 100 square feet. The interior modifications are somewhat extensive. It's limited mainly to kitchens and bathrooms. And then the larger one is to enclose this screened in porch. So there is added space, but it's all under the same existing roof that's there right now. So again, we want to remove this wall, and we want to remove this guardrail, this large guardrail here around the deck, and expand the deck. And then there are some modifications to these windows, none of which are sort of conforming to the typical Charles Goodman design. So next slide, please. I'll try to go through this really quickly here. These are floor plans. This is the lower level. You can kind of see this is the existing condition here. You could see this tall fence. It's about 6-foot fence that goes around in this interesting capacity, but we don't really know what is happening there. We would like to eliminate all of this perimeter fence and then come in with 3.5-inch circular pipe columns all across here. The module is basically at 6'3", which is bringing the point loads down from the structure above, all except for one bay, and I think it is this one. It's either this one or this one, and it's about 8 inches less. Next slide. Well, in the interior, yeah, that's fine. Nothing else is happening. This is a blow up of the lower level. We're mainly doing interior improvements, but the exterior of the building, which is this lower brick wall here, this is the lower level. Pretty much you can see 2 stories all the way around. The front elevation, the grade is higher. You pretty much see the building as a 1-story building on this north elevation. This is the west elevation here. And here I got some dimensions for you guys. Yes, this is 5'8". So this bay right here is 5'8". All the rest of these are 6'3". Next slide, please. This is upstairs improvements. So we were brought into the project, and the existing kitchen was in this space at the time the water damage had already occurred.
This central area was the kitchen right here. And we were brought in to talk about sort of what the possibilities are. And immediately, this being the west elevation and this being this sort of peculiar, sort of long extruded space, I was thinking right away, why doesn't your kitchen extend out in here? Because that's a little bit tight for a kitchen. And why don't we open up some of these walls? This is our new plan here. We have a large kitchen island, a little mini island, and then the sink is over in this area. The cooking is along this space. So the idea is that we would come out this direction. The problem is if we go back to that, well, I don't need to go back, but we'll show you the elevation in a minute. These windows, the sill of the windows was at about 30 inches. We have to automatically change some of the windows because you don't want to see the back of the kitchen cabinets when you look through the window. So that changes here, but you could kind of see this column here. That's an existing column. We don't want to change this peculiar roof structure that was already done in the 70s. We just really want to come in and support this. So when we looked at all of this and improving all this space, next slide, please. We started to look at, okay, this is a blow up. Next slide, please. We started to look at, oh, here, so this is all coming out. We started to look at these columns, these columns, these posts are a little bit odd and peculiar. Next slide, please. And then we started to look at the condition, and this is like the slab here. And obviously we're not going to, do all these improvements upstairs. And then the weight is being transferred down onto all of these, 40, 50-year-old, roughly 50-year-old bases of these 4x4 columns. So that's why we came up, and this is a quick sketch here of the structure. And this is what we're proposing here, which is a 3.5-inch pipe column that comes down and attaches to the existing footer. We know in some areas we're going to have to underpin those footers. And this is the existing condition. So we'd like to get rid of all of that sort of heavy metal base cap. Next slide, please. Okay, this is existing elevation. So we are affecting 4 elevations, but this is the prominent elevation that we're really sort of making modifications. The fence comes out, we come in with these new columns. Now you can kind of see that we don't have a lot of choices with the columns. This existing post is going to come straight down here. We're just following that line down. So we're basically really just following the existing structural grid in the building. These are existing windows here. When I come to these windows, this is an existing window, but it's actually taller. It's longer this way, dashed in right across here, as you could kind of see where the windows would be at 30 inches off the ground. We're going to raise this up, and these are now about 42 inches off the finished floor. So we have to change all these windows, and in doing so, the owners requested perhaps we should break this window up and have 2 operable windows. So instead of modifying this, we're really close to the 3-foot 1.5 center lines. We're a little bit off. They're a little bit larger, but these are 2 casement windows here. This is the screened-in porch right here. We kept those lines coming down all the way. This becomes interior space. We are going to put in glass based on that existing module. And again, we have an exterior wall and another wall here. If you go in with the 3-foot 1.5 Goodman, it's not going to fit. You can have 2 equal and then a little skinny window. So we opted for this resolution. Then in terms of this sort of wall-like guardrail, which is T111, it's all rotten, it's falling apart, it's kind of a mess. We're going to opt for a cable rail system with a custom stainless steel post. And the entryway, so one other thing, the stair now, the front stair comes right up in the front of the house like that. We propose that we would have the stair comes to the side. Next slide, please.
I hate to press you, but.
Okay, next slide, please.
And just knowing how well our time is looking at.
Next slide. Okay, so this is the front elevation. We want to take this out, and we would like to propose a cable railing, and then the stair goes straight to the door now. We would like to shift that. Next slide, please. And here's the elevation of how we're going to take the stair up and then have a landing. And then now with the cable rail, it's pretty much, hopefully, it's more transparent, and then you could actually see the Goodman building beyond. This elevation here is the next change. This was a sliding glass door that was put in. I take out the sliding glass door and then put in the Goodman style windows here at 3-foot 1.5 on center and an operable door. And the front door is also going to be a new door, but it's going to be a solid door, that matches what's existing. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. This is the back of the building. This is the back of the screen porch here, and we are going to fill that in. Next slide, please. And this is, our work is taking place over here. This is the screen porch. This gets filled in. It now becomes solid. We're going to have similar siding here to match the 4-inch T111 siding. Most likely will be real wood, not T111, but we'll match and possibly have a custom milled cedar, redwood, cypress type wood that will match the T111, and that would be right in this area. And then again, the leftover space are equal sized windows. Next slide. Next slide. And this is so we're going to change this door here. You can see the door is pretty beat up. This is more of the existing looking Goodman house, and we're going to change the door. Next slide, please. And that's the only improvement right there. And I think those are all the improvements. Next slide. This shows the front deck. So the front deck, we are actually making, so the front deck, we're increasing the size of the area that by about 100 square feet and making it square. And I think that's all.
Okay. Thank you for that speed walk through it. Is any member of the public has a comment on this one? I do not see any. That being said, we can go to our members for comments or questions on the application. I'm just going to say up front, I thought it was a fantastic package. It really showed before and after proposed. I'll let other members have questions, but that alone is super helpful for understanding this complex house.
Mr. Valencia, I was going to lead with the same thing. It's very well detailed drawings. We could see all the things that you're doing. It's easy to read, and just very nicely done. And I think the architecture is too. And my biggest question to you is, have you gotten Tom Kern's approval to?
Got that. I thought about that.
We did have a house on the Holland Hills house tour, and Tom's really good friends with my father, who's also an architect, and he came by to say hello. So I was there from like 12 to 1 o'clock at Mid and Jin's house. And he came in to say hi, and we spoke for 15 minutes. So I did not actually bring it up, though. I have to say, we were talking about other things.
You don't need his permission, but certainly an issue. But I think this is very well handled. I think you've made improvements to the additions from 1975 that bring them in line with the Goodman aesthetic. It's just say
Easy.
Good as is. Happy to see what you've done.
Ms. Mangan?
I just had a quick question, since you didn't really know the purpose of that lower level fence. What did Tom Kern say it was there for?
I haven't asked him about
I was
it.
wondering.
Design, baby.
It's design. And that's where I was thinking, was that to mask the exposed columns? But that's just a guess about what the intent there was. And again, it's not a criticism to remove them, just wondering, imagine those columns are pretty unique for Holland Hills. Maybe not.
I could talk stylistically about what was happening in the 70s. Meyer was kind of the king, and he had a lot of like long horizontal slot like windows like that. When you look at it from afar, the void does look like that those are windows.
Oh, baby.
I think they're probably worried about this addition coming out like too far as this cantilevered volume with this void below. But I'm not exactly sure. I can ask it. The other thing that I'd like to add is that we don't know, so we're trying to have approval for the entire project, but it's all based on finances, insurance claims, all these different things. But we would like to just sort of say, this is the long-term master plan that we're going for, and that's really what we'd like to have approval for. We know that usually it's a longer process and you guys want to be more involved, but because most of the building where we're doing most of our work, they're non-conforming sort of Goodman designs anyways. So we just sort of feel like we're coming back and just trying to improve this as quick as we can. Obviously, me being here, it costs money. And because of the situation, we really appreciate it if we could have like a vote for
Saw Miss Hammock and then Miss Juan.
Not to cut you off, but I think you hired a great architect. You've been really thoughtful, great presentation, set the bar high for people watching at home. No, I'm really serious because it's easier for us to feel confident about approving something when it's this clear. I have just two comments. One, is there anything you can do about the louver over the primary entrance, that orange door? There's like a louver in the gable. I mean, I don't want you to take on more work, just wondering like,
There, that little small, well,
It's historic.
that's historic? All right, never mind.
is it was there? Yeah, this is a later version. This is like a 68 house.
Maybe that's had AC.
Yeah.
And
I'll comment on that.
okay, another thing is I think it's the southeast elevation. I'm right that that's not seen from any street. That's the rear, right?
Right.
Okay, because if it was visible, I would prefer that single leaf door to stay solid, but since it's not visible from the street, I think it's fine that it becomes glass and wood. And that's it. I can approve it as presented.
All right, Miss Juan?
Yes. I like you open up the front patio and using the cable railing. And in comparison, you have the lower level totally completely closed with the with the brickwork. So I think that contrast will make the massing look kind of distinguished and have a horizontal line there. That's something I kind of have in my background of Holland Hill. The only one comment I have is for the northwest elevation, this elevation, for those three very tall windows, I kind of sort of like the existing configuration, that one less mullion to cut it, the glass into three,
the horizontal,
like a triangular, right? Is that a reason?
Piece of glass. That's like a 9-foot piece of glass. That's
Yeah,
not an ordinary piece of glass. So there's a little bit of just a general concern because we actually have I have a construction company too, and we make these windows. So I know the limits in the glass manufacturers, and I know when it's like $1,000 piece of glass to a $3,000 piece of glass, and there's a bigger chance of that piece of glass breaking. Plus the other thing is we're trying to, because this shed roof coming up this direction it mimics this, but then this one is very different. So I think what we're trying to do is just to take this horizontal line and bring that across. And then again, this window also is a little bit complicated. As that vertical comes up, then that becomes this little tiny triangular piece, and it's almost too small for the rest of this elevation. That's how we got there. But we did look at it a lot. We had a lot of different drawings. We're sending these guys a lot of drawings. It's a lot of back and forth, and in the end, this is where we landed.
Just very minor comments. Okay. Thank you for explanation. I totally understand that.
I totally did, yeah.
Mr. Burns?
Yeah, I believe this is a Deca model house. Is that correct?
I don't know.
Well, the vintage and the
Roll on this street that touches, yeah.
that this was actually a post-Goodman house that Davenport built after Goodman left his partnership with Davenport. He left in 1961. He said this was 68, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is, and I think it's called a Deca. It's normally built into a hillside so that the first floor that faces the street here would be in the dirt.
Yes.
Which is why there's no fenestration and stuff like that. So that's what's going on there.
Right. There's a large retaining wall here. You're exactly right. There's a large retaining wall here.
Yeah.
And then so it looks like, it appears from the front, it appears like it's a one-level house.
Yeah. The several comments. Yeah, one is I think that this both acknowledges the Goodman's part of the house, or the Goodman Davenport part of the house, the original house, and acknowledges the fact that in the 1970s, the design was a little different. We had another house that came before us in a workshop that had a big trapezoidal window as a primary feature on the front elevation, as this does. But I think that the changes that you've made are respectful of both the original house and the 1970s addition, and will improve it. Could you show the picture of the front elevation again? No, the street elevation there. Okay. And I think that the changes you're making, one thing that will help, I think, is to have a base to the addition. You're bringing something across
We
there.
are.
Yeah, and I think that will help to tie it all
That's-
together.
I forgot to mention that. Should I bring that up?
Yeah, well, I just mentioned it, so
We did. It's in our, so.
it's in the drawings.
And so so that way I was really perplexed because in the old Goodman houses, there's basically a fascia board that runs all the way across here. So the wood areas look a little bit more compartmentalized and it's not here. And I know they just took that out because that's an expensive thing. It's like fascia, metal flashing, all this other stuff. So because the deck, we're going to have the deck is coming out further and we had a fascia board there. We added it all across here and then back and it dies in on that return. If you go to the elevation, I think it's the next couple drawings. One more, please. One more. Yes, right here. So you can see this is the existing condition. And then when we come in here, this is the fascia, which would be painted white across here. And then we added that line this direction. And then the next slide, you can see it actually goes back and returns because we don't want next, please. Oh, sorry. One more. It's a couple. One more. And one more. There. So you can kind of see this is going to remain because that's the old house. But in this line here where this addition occurred, we were going to bring that low fascia board all the way around.
Yeah, the other thing, can you go back about 4 or 5 slides to the enlarged drawing of the front elevation? There. Okay. On that one, you're going to have that large space now with that screen at the first level removed. And that's a large, very dark space inside. If you would be able to consider it, I would suggest taking those 3 windows to the right of the door and making those long windows and bringing light into it. It's going to be a laundry room.
Yeah.
But it's right now, it's going to be a dingy, dark laundry room.
Yeah.
And you could, I think, give more light into that space and make it easier for you to want to go out and use that as a sheltered area, as a patio where you might, because right now it's just dead space under an overhang. And to activate that, if you made that more like something where you'd be willing to come downstairs and walk out and use that space, I think that might help the design. That's not a condition I would put on an approval, but I think that is something that you should consider. And maybe in a future phase.
Future phase, yeah.
But I think that's well. But my overall comment is that this is a discreet and pretty respectful solution that solves your immediate needs, but I think will also enhance the view of the house from the street. And so I'm happy to see it.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other comments or, all right. Not seeing any, I would look for a motion from a member of the board. Kalinsky.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I move that the ARB approve action item ARB 24HOL 14 located 2113 Mason Hill Drive, Alexandria, tax map 0933200024 in the Holland Hills HOD for the proposed alterations, structural modifications, and deck construction as submitted and presented at the June 13, 2024 ARB meeting. Upon review of the materials, the proposal is found to meet the requirements of zoning ordinance 3101 historic overlay districts.
Second. I'm going to give it to Mr. Burns. Second by Mr. Burns. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Any abstentions? All right, the motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you for your comments too.
Absolutely. Thank you for the fantastic presentation and for the wonderful walkthrough of the concept.
Thank you.
All right, that takes us on to our items for workshop. Our first item for workshop is ARB 24 LFK 03 WS 1100 Chain Bridge Road, demolition and new construction. Langley Fork Historic Overlay District. This is the proposing the demolition of existing residential building and construction of a new two-story residential building, pool and pool pavilion. Mr. Javoy represents the application. Mr. Javoy, good to see you. I made sure to put you in the front of the workshop sessions this time since you were last time. I am very glad that I could do that this time because otherwise you might be talking the next day.
But anyways, good evening, everybody, and Mr. Chairman, Kayvan Jabouri with KJ Associates. I'm the project engineer for the application. Alongside me is Mr. Yusufi, the project architect. As you recall, we met on this project about 3 months ago, and the board has significant comments regarding our architectural drawings and the designs and all of that. We are back here, a significant number of options, both elevation wise and so forth. May I ask you to go to slide number 23, unless members of the board would like to go through the maps and all of that. I think we can go to the meat of the architectural issues.
I was gonna say, the last time we focused on architectural materials, so, I mean, if you want to, for the sake of time and the hour, jump right into it, I think we've seen this one before.
Exactly.
I think going straight into the concept you guys are bringing up.
So,
get into it.
just very quickly, before I turn it over, we're providing you with 3 different options with and without shutters for all the options and different roof types.
Good evening. I couldn't be here last time, but I listened to the recording. And based on the comments that I heard, I came up with a few options. Couldn't put all the options in like separate houses all around. It'd be like ended up with like 100 different images. The categories of the roof, this is the main roof as it was with gable. We're also offering a roof with hip. Because I heard a comment that there was too much mass of a brick on the sides, so that might, reduce the image of the brick. Also on the gable, on some of them, we have the option of closing the gable. So there's 3 options on that roof. On the cladding, we have 3 options. One is brick and 2 different shades of stone for the other ones. On the windows, we have options of the number and configuration of the windows around the house. Also, another option is the trim on the windows, and some with shutters, some without. Basically, but so each image, each option can be put onto another type of cladding or roof. We couldn't produce all of them. So you go through it, you can look at it and make comments or choices.
Well, if you want to walk us through the various options on the slides, that would make, I think, make the most sense.
Just call for it to be next.
The next one. Whatever. These are all the fronts. There are 2 shades of stones. This is the windows are the same. The roof is the same. Next one.
This is a gray stone instead of a multicolor stone.
Yeah. I don't know which one this was the option that they wanted.
This was one of the options.
Okay, the next up. The same one. Oh, okay. These are 2 windows with shutters. This shutter, we have this shutter with white and one with black. The same thing. Okay, next one. That's another option on this one. Shutters on this one.
Next, please. This is, that was a gray stone with, yes.
That was with brick with 2 windows and shutters. Okay, next one. Yeah, that was, okay, next one. Okay, same image with black shutters and heat proof with dormers. Next one. Same 2 instead of 3, hip roof and dormers. Same thing with black shutters. Next one. Okay, on the side, this is the first option. Those gables. Just simple trim on the windows. We have one option, I don't know if it's here or not, that we heard the comment that somebody wanted the doors to be setting a little bit further. Studying this image was another one. 2 windows here, double window. This is this one, next one. Single window, watch shutters, same image, yeah. Next one. Next one.
I think that was the deeper garage door. Can you go one back, please? I think that's a deeper garage door, isn't it?
Yeah, we put a 2x10 instead of 2x6.
Yes, that's a deeper garage, I believe.
Actually, should draw it.
Okay. This is same option as the front, just brick and trim on it.
If I may add here, a comment was made by one of the members regarding the style of so-called the gazebo. So we did away from that enclosed gazebo, proposing a more traditional gazebo. Next, please.
Same view, only brick, only stone. Next one.
These are with shutters, same.
Same thing with shutters.
What we've tried to
Okay.
do is, yeah.
The other one had 3 windows. This option has different conversion of the windows. This one. Next one. Next one. We wanted more windows on the left side of the house. So that's that one with simple trim on the windows and a closed gable. Next one. Same thing with white shutters. And one we have with black shutters. A hip roof with 3 dormers. These are the drawings.
So I think for context, obviously, I know we've seen Mr. Jory a few times. I know we've been slowly working to give you input on the design, and the understanding I've kind of taken away from it since it's a workshop. You're looking for more input before you go too much farther into the design stage. And
We would like to
have an idea of where the board's going.
which facade you would like to see, whether you want white shutters or darker shutters. So we move forward with finalizing the design.
So I think we have a few, obviously, because I looked at some of the last minutes from the last time we commented. Obviously, we talked a lot about massing, talked a lot about the roof size and windows and spacing of windows. So I think there's a lot of stuff for us to provide feedback from. Again, it is a workshop, so we're not looking for exact final plans yet. So I would look to members.
My comments will be very simple because I'm not an architect, but just kind of what I like. I like the brick. I think the stone is a lot. And I think fewer windows looked better to me. Sometimes when there were a lot of windows, it seemed to kind of overtake. That was my opinion.
With all due respect, the last time we were here,
I know.
comment made that
I know.
the back was too blah and all of that. So
I'm not talking, I think what I mean is on the front. Well, this is me. Again, I'm one person, Mr. Tripori, so.
yes, I understand.
Right? I thought 2 windows instead of 3 looked better. That was me. But other people could disagree with that. That's fine.
Give me the options, so you tell us what you want. You want 2 windows?
So that's why we'll let you hear what everyone's got to
That's all I
say.
have
You
to
can work
say.
with that
You hear
because
from other people.
you're never going to hear us all say, well, it'd be a miracle if we all said, hey, this is exactly the thing we all want to see. Because we don't want to design a house by committee either, but I feel like if you hear the feedback from the members, you'll get an idea of what design seems to match.
I want to have an answer to see what to come back with.
Yeah, then we're going to try to get to that.
Give you a lot of options.
Yeah. Ms. Hammack?
I don't think it's the board's role to design a project. With that said, I will definitely give you feedback on the questions you have today. I was expecting or hoping a more substantial redesign. I spoke a lot last time. I'm not gonna say everything, repeat myself. I also was hoping that you would bring us some more contextual photographs of the neighborhood to make a case for how your design is appropriate and how it's in keeping with the historic streetscape. So when you come back, I would still like to see historic pictures of contributing resources in the historic district to create a narrative for why your design is appropriate. I much prefer brick over stone. I do like the shutters. The whole point of a shutter is to protect glass during incremental weather. So in my mind, there should never be a shutter on a window that if it was closed, it would not meet. So there should not be a shutter on a window that is 3 windows wide, like at the rear. So I don't think there should be shutters at the rear or on that double height window. I think there must be a stairwell. So yeah, that makes no sense to me, because those shutters wouldn't protect the windows when closed. So no shutters on windows like that. I think the shutter should be a contrasting color to the brick. Yeah, so I think that answers all of the questions regarding the options you gave us today.
So shutters on only front windows and nothing on the rest of them.
Only a shutter on a window that if the shutters were to close, they would meet. So if you have a window and you have a shutter, the shutter should not be so narrow that if it were to close, it would not meet the other shutter and the shutter in the window. And also the proportions of your dormers are off. I would suggest exploring another type of dormer, maybe a shed or an eyebrow dormer or a bigger dormer. They're
With 3 windows, I mean.
To me, a dormer of that size on a roof of that size looks inappropriate.
What's the proportion of window?
I'm not an architect and I'm not getting paid to design this building. So
But I mean, you're making a design comment.
I'm suggesting that you,
It's true.
a larger dormer, a shed dormer, an eyebrow dormer.
2 foot by 3 foot is just a standard normal proportion. I mean,
I'm not gonna quibble with you about this.
I don't want to come back and forth 10 times to see.
We've got other,
Sure, maybe,
Other-
maybe someone
yeah.
else can give you
I know
a dormer that they feel.
respect to Ms. Hammock, she's right. We're not going to design the house, but she gave you some reactions on the things that
No.
she's got concerns with.
I want to come back with the taller ones. It's too tall, come back next time. I gotta at least somewhere.
People, do you need a dormer in that space? What purpose is the dormer serving?
Nothing, just filling up the space.
Well, then maybe it needs to go.
It was clear.
Right now that
Some
maybe no dormer there.
dormers, I put a dormer there. I do not want dormer, actually. I don't like dormers.
I don't like those dormers.
Because-
Maybe take them out.
I put them down, so I take them out.
All right, Mr. Kalinsky, and then I'll get to you.
Well, can I just say quickly, I agree with her about the dormers. They're just
Take them out.
too small. Take them off, yes.
Come on, good.
The only thing I didn't like, it jumped out at me too.
Jonathan, can you go to slide 52?
I don't have numbered,
Okay, so pretty far down, it's in the renderings.
Just keep going.
It's in option 3, Jonathan.
That helps. What side?
Which
It's front elevation.
52 is an architectural,
Okay, go back to,
it's way beyond these.
okay, yeah,
Mine's still.
wait,
Keep on going,
yeah, keep on going, sorry.
keep on going. Go beyond these renderings, go to the architectural drawings. The black and white
It's not
line work. No, it's not in, there we go. So we're getting,
3D you wanted?
Well, I was looking for the rendering.
Keep going.
Jonathan, it's a rendering with white brick and it's got darker shutters.
which view, Mr. Kolinsky?
It's the front.
Front elevation.
Okay.
Oh, just missed
Go back.
Go back.
All right,
back. Yay.
that one.
So that white brick and the contrasting dark shutters And the proportion of those windows, having just 5/4 plus the door in the center on the main portion of the brick, those are the proper proportions. That brick detailing showing the banding, that is the proper proportion also, that helps. The hip roof, I think works. I would lose the dormers. They're just they're too short for the space. I would just lose them. They're serving no real purpose, especially when it's hipped. If it were a gable roof, then it'd be a different valuation of it. But right now, I think if you were to lose that, this is the sort of thing that I would be
It is indeed.
more
I agree.
apt to.
This is my taste. I'm not into historic look, but
So-
this is my taste.
So let's go back to the shutters. The shutter width needs to be half the masonry opening width. So when they were to shut, if they were to shut, they would fully close the masonry opening. And the width, also the height, needs to match the masonry opening height.
Yeah.
It can't be shorter, can't be taller, can't overhang down below the sill, can't go above, or can't be 2 or 3 inches shorter. That throws the whole proportion off. So they're gonna have to be custom shutters, because you're not gonna be able to buy them from a prefab supplier sort of thing. You're gonna have to order them. There's lots of shutter companies, that Timberline being a very prominent one, that you could get well-made, well-proportioned shutters. And shutters should only go on individual single window openings. So anytime you have 3 windows or you've got doors, there shouldn't be any shutters on there. So when we get around to the back, you're gonna have far fewer shutters than you are gonna have on the front elevation.
Okay.
Okay?
Just to be educated.
Sure.
If Mr. Yusufi were to make these shutters wider on the first left-hand side window, that is towards the jog out for the front entrance, do you not think that that proportion from the shutter to the end wall would be awkward?
Well, once you make, I mean, these shutters appear to be appropriately scaled. But I mean, it's a rendering. I don't have any measurements, know for a fact, but once you have your unit, your window unit, which includes the shutters, then you need to balance them, and as an architect, you could easily get the right proportion between them. So you're gonna have some adjustment in your interior room in terms of where that window lays, but it's gonna lay within the room. It may not be perfectly centered in the room, but that's not critical. The outside appearance is critical. So when you come back, we'd like to see the detailing on the brick banding. I mean, it's very nicely done here, but we would like to see that with dimensions to know exactly how that's going to be built. And, if those are custom shapes or not, however that is shown, need to have all that detail in the drawings. If you go to the side elevation.
Before you go, I want to just jump on this, since we're talking about this one. I also have to agree. Gables, or I'm sorry, dormers, yuck. Hip roof. Looking at it though, I think the hip roof dramatically reduces a massing effect that we're seeing. Now, obviously, we're working with a rendering here, but I think it definitely helps a lot. And I just want to throw out that observation right there.
And just real quick, Mr. Jory, my comment was, this is what I was looking for.
Okay.
This one.
But I'll let Mr. Burns, since we're all talking about this one, let's hear some thoughts on it.
Discussion, go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay. I think the only thing that shows the correct proportions on the house are the dormers. It's the house that's out of proportion to the dormers.
Well, that's why the dormers look so small, yes. Yes.
The dormers
I
are
don't
in
think
proper
it's a small
proportion
house.
size to the historic district. Right?
To the house you would like
The
to see.
house Needs
Yeah.
to respect the character of the historic district, not the buildings further down the street. They're all new McMansions and they're huge. This is a very huge building. And I think the dormer points out just how big this is. And I think that's what we've got. We're in the inverse here. We're talking about coloration or finished materials on the front. The big problem is it's too bloody big.
Do we have it? In the application here, I know it's a workshop application. Do we have any reference to the size of the building to the rest of the buildings in the historic district? Can we see the historic district map? Is that on on this application?
Let me look.
I mean, I think the only structure in the district that might have comparable size, and that's only due to the successive additions, would be the Langley Ordinary, but that's literally probably counting all the additions on the back of it. So.
We zoom in tighter on this?
Store that
Hickory Hills? Yeah, I mean, Kennedy's is twice as big as this.
But let me see if I can help Mr. Polinsky here.
It has dormers that are better.
That's
Relative to the immediate houses to this, the one across the street is significantly larger, but let me see.
Well, and what Mr. Kalinsky is getting at is, so looking at that map, there are several houses with the stars. We're talking about the original district houses. I would say a significant portion of them would be obviously smaller. So the Langley Ordinary, the only reason I brought that one up is I know we've reviewed several additions to the rear of that one. So
They're wood buildings too.
So are we suggesting to redesign the house to make it smaller? Is that?
well, I mean, I think we've said that consistently a few times, that this house is very big.
We did that. We did it once and you agreed that it's okay. Well, we're here, after a year, and you're asking me to reduce the size of the house again?
Well, so to speak, I guess frankly, from what we've said the last few times, we would rather what's being proposed here be more designed to the district than, because we understand it's being designed to be eventually sold. There's not actually a buyer, someone that says this is what I want. And so the comment I made last time,
well, they had it up for sale.
Waiting till they finish their sidebar here, because that's going to make recording very challenging. We'd rather the house be designed to something that's more appropriate to the district, which I think ultimately every one of us would tell you it would be a smaller house. I understand though that there are plenty of people that want larger houses in Fairfax County, so I'm not going to lie to myself and think that those aren't common structures in our county. But you're asking what would be appropriate. It would be something smaller. I mean, it would be, if I'm throwing a percentage, be at least 20% smaller, if not more, but that's just because it would be more in keeping with the historic buildings that we're trying to preserve.
Because from this house, it's a huge house. Kennedy is twice as big as this.
Yes, but they're not the historic houses. That this board's job is to protect the character of this district, not the McMansions that were built around it. That's not, but Ms. Hammock, by all means.
I think, okay, this is not the first time I've reviewed a new construction in a historic district for freestanding homes. And in my experience with other boards, what the board asks for and what the board gets, because this is a big ask, you're basically tearing down a building that is not derelict. It's functioning fine as a building as it is. Okay, it could be sold, someone could purchase it and move in. It's not going to fall down on itself. You're asking for new construction. And in a perfect world, I would like you to provide the lot coverage percentage for the abutting buildings within the historic property. So that means taking that map, taking the footprint of the abutting buildings, telling them if they're new construction or contributing resources, telling us the footprint percentage of the lot, and then making the case to us that your footprint, your lot coverage is in keeping with the historic district. Like with the last applicant, what I was trying to say is you provided us all the information so that we feel really confident about our decision. I don't feel confident that this is appropriately sized for the historic district. Maybe it is, but the impetus is on you, the applicant, to provide us, I feel, that information. And it is work. It is work. You have to get maps. You have to figure out the lot coverage of your neighbors. You have to read our historic district reports. You have to figure out which buildings are historic. You have to drive around and take photographs. I feel that for a house of this size, and that is the ask that I expect from an applicant. So in this historic district. And if you keep coming to us with less, I feel there will be more hemming and hawing as we don't feel confident that we can approve it. We're nitpicking shutter details, but I don't know. I feel like there's still a big picture that hasn't been given to us.
Why do I hear this after a year? You didn't want the first design, we changed it, and this was okay. Now we're coming to details of the color of the brick or stone or shutter or the roof line, and you tell me that the house has to.
No, just one board member made that comment, but I told the applicant at the previous hearing that I wanted some context information for the abutting historic structures. So I feel like I've already asked for that.
Fairly, we've commented on the size of this house consistently at each of these meetings. It's not, I mean, for everyone I've been at, this has been a consistent theme here. We're not saying something new here. To frame this with something good, I would say, I think you're getting the aesthetic idea down with the painted brick, the shutters. You're talking about shutters that would be appropriate to close. You've got details in the design that are more akin to what we'd want to see in a structure built here. I think you're seeing more like the seams from that concept appropriate. But as Mr. Burns pointed out, we're all talking about, oh, we don't like that dormer. Well, he actually highlighted exactly. You're putting a dormer that might be appropriate on a much smaller house. It feels overwhelmed because the house is so big. I mean, you can't expect us not to ask the question, why does it have to be such a big house? I recognize that there's a house across the street, very big too. That doesn't mean we're monolithic. It also is not a historic housing district. So we're always going to try to push for that medium of finding that compatible middle ground with new construction, which is always why new construction is so challenging, because you're dealing with what is appropriate to the needs of new homeowners or new residents, but what is also compatible with the existing structures that were built quite a long time ago. So it's, we're not asking you for an easy ask. So I don't know of any.
The guidelines for this district says a building height shall not exceed 35 feet.
Oh, that's a county rule, ma'am, also, and we are meeting that.
I imagine it doesn't. Yeah. Usually it's probably, I imagine it's 34.9 or something very close. Yes.
Respectfully,
Midpoint of the roof.
Mr. Chairman, respectfully, Mr. Youssef is correct. We originally came to a workshop. This is the fourth workshop, I believe, we have attended on this project. The members of the board were unhappy with the size of the house, the amount of impervious cover besides the size of the house on the property. And we went back, we reduced the size of the house, we reduced the impervious cover, we reduced we changed the double entrance driveway to a single driveway entrance. We have done everything that we have been asked to do. And the last impression we got was that everybody on the board was happy with the size of the house. And now here we are, members of the board are still having issues with the size of the house. And we keep on trying, but in one hand, we're being said, we're not here to design your house, but all the comments that you're making, you're designing the house.
Well, I mean, in the end, you could come to us, well, you're asking for feedback. So you could come to us with a set of plans for a house and we could vote on it. And we could vote to approve it, we could vote to deny it. But choosing the workshop is hearing this out, because I don't think, based on your statement of we're happy with the size of the house, the general murmur I heard confirms to me that I don't think everyone was. I'm happy to hear, and you're right, it's been a lot of workshops. I think it's pleasing to hear that we've reduced it and we've changed it. And I think to try to again frame it with the good, you have made significant changes. And I'm pointing out, I think there are details in this design that you can hear from us. Those are things we like to see, but we're still honestly telling you, we still think it's big. I think I remember asking last time, I know you said you were designing a house to find a buyer. I was asking, design a house for this district, and the buyer you'll find that buyer because they'll want it because it's so appropriate for the district. I said something to that effect at the last meeting, and I still stand by that statement. That
we were guided in the last work session that go to this particular property. This is the elevation that would fit your use. That house is bigger than this house. And that is in the historic district.
And it has no trim on it. Has a black windows, which was opposed here last time. Has a window which is 8 by 12 feet, which has nothing to do with historical, but unless you see Asheville. I don't see why that house is historical, and compared to this elevation, it's just a world apart.
It probably is not a historic house in the
The
district.
transition or design, and that's what you're asking us to do, and then
Miss
it's a huge house.
Murray has
Well,
some.
I'm looking at the old guidelines, not the new ones, and it says new construction should be in scale with the surrounding space. For instance, a structure should not have a front elevation wider than 1/3 of its lot.
Yeah.
You want a townhouse here, basically.
All I'm just saying is you guys aren't listening ever about the size of this building. This group has never been happy with it. And our guidelines call for something that's smaller and more in scale with the historic structures. And it's probably not what you're looking for economically.
Yeah, there are comments from,
They're so big.
again, I think to try to frame the positive with the, obviously the not so positive feedback you're hearing from us. I think we're clearly telling you there are certain elements that you've got in your design concept that are more compatible. Painted brick, shutters, those all make sense for the houses in this district. They're consistent, I would say, generally with the guidelines we have, and they're more consistent with the guidelines that eventually one day we'll get approved. I also think the hip roof concept does a lot for massing. But you're hearing from us, I mean, obviously, you were discussing Mr. Kalinsky about, well, once you start looking at those shutters and those windows, you know, adjusting size, why don't you have a bigger look at adjusting size right then and there and see what more you can do. I also think it's going to be a case for when you do come for application one day, I would make sure you have all that ready to talk about. Here was the original proposed design. Here's the reductions we've made. Here's the percentage changes we've made to make it more compatible. Make your case too. I'm not, you know, none of us is telling you that you have to have a smaller house, but this body is one part of the process to get an approval for a building permit. And I think making your case and presenting, you know, with a design you feel more confident based on the feedback you've got. If it seems like we're hemming and hawing back and forth, then, you know, maybe that is the step to make the next. That's up to you to make, you know. I'm never going to tell you you can't make a decision to go to an application and just to design something. That's not, you know, the board's not going to say that. We're just trying to give you a feeling of our comfort level here.
I don't want to know what he wants to do.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Board. All right. I have ARB 24 CRM 01 WS 117 Colvin Run Road Trail and Bridge. It's located in the Colvin Run Mill Historic Overlay District. The applicant is proposing to construct a 3 to 4 foot wide natural surface trail on the south side of Route 7 and to install a pedestrian bridge over Colvin Run. The proposed trail and bridge installation would connect the existing tunnel under Route 7 to an existing Fairfax County Park Authority's trail to River Trail. Yeah. Elizabeth Iannetta?
Close. Iannetta. Yes.
Represents the application.
Good evening. My name is Beth Iannetta. If you want to call me Elizabeth when you're mad at me, please do. You call me Elizabeth, but the county requires me to use my full name. I'm with the Park Authority. I am the trail project manager. Tonight with me, I have Tom McFarland, who's the trail program manager, and senior archaeologist, Amy Wells, working with me on this project. As you stated, we're proposing to install a natural surface trail and bridge on the south side of Route 7 as part of, to connect to the pedestrian tunnel that was constructed with the widening and raising of Route 7. Next slide, please. Tonight, we're going to review the project location, to provide some historical background information, which led us to this point, review the milestones and project timeline, go over some existing site conditions, the bridge and trail details, and get some feedback from you and answer some questions. We're really trying to introduce you to the project and what we're thinking. We're at a point where we need to make some decisions, and we don't want to go too far with the design without hearing feedback from you guys. So I know you don't like to design projects, but I'm asking you to do that, and we're not building a house. So so far, we're going in the right direction. Full disclosure, I actually used to be the recording secretary for this group for 12 years in the early 2000s in my early professional career. So hello, Mr. Burns. And Lisa's here too. I think Joe is still on the. Yeah, Joe's still on the.
Absent today.
I was here when Joe got joined, so you know that's how far back I go. So I have sat through a lot of these presentations, and so it's really full circle coming to you. Kind of weird. I wish we were in room 4-5 where we used to be. This setup is much better.
Just say, oh, we really like being here.
You know,
If you go to the next slide, please. Just to familiarize you with the site, in case you don't know, Colburn Run is located on Route 7, on the north side of the park. That has been bisected by Route 7 by Virginia Department of Transportation. On the north side, we have the original grist mill, the miller's house, the general store, the carriage shed, mill races, and the parking lot. And on the south side, we have two trails. They get confused and intertwined, so just want to make sure you're familiar with which one is which. Shown in red is the Jerry Connolly Cross County Trail, which starts on the south, goes up Carper's Farm, crosses over 7, and then continues north towards the Potomac River. There is a new crossing, which is not shown on this map, which is put in as part of the project, which is gonna come down this way and under this overpass, but we're not dealing with that tonight. We're going to be dealing on the other side where the Rails to River Trail is, which connects you over to Lake Fairfax. And actually the trailhead is in Reston, where the skate arena or bowling area used to be off Michael Faraday Drive, if you're familiar with that. So that's where that trailhead starts, and then it continues all the way up to the Potomac River. And as noted on this map, our project is in the general vicinity where the yellow star is on the south side. Next slide, please. So in 1941, the Virginia Department of Highways constructed Route 7, which bisected the property, much to everyone's chagrin. The route ran between the mill and the mill dam, and a deep cut excavated through the hill north and west of the mill site, which you can kind of see in the background of the photograph. This photograph was taken in 1969 when they were reconstructing the mill. This is the trail race. Colburn Run Mill Road is behind you. Route 7 is the road pictured in the photograph right here, just to give you an idea of how the road cut through the district in the beginning, or the property in the beginning. Fairfax County residents at the time had petitioned the Board of Supervisors to preserve and restore the mill as a historic landmark before it completely ruined and neglect. Next slide, please. Thank you. In 1964, the Fairfax County had acquired the 36-acre property encompassing the grist mill, the miller's house, barn, 3 sheds, and the remainders of the mill dam. This parcel was then conveyed to the Park Authority in 1965. The Park Authority then moved forward with plans to reconstruct the mill and worked again in 1968 and 1969. And please note, these photographs are from that time period. He was able to give me the photographs, and they are extensive. I just don't have full photographs of the south side and what they did on that part, but hopefully these photographs give you an idea of the work that they did on the site. Construction continued. Please go to the next slide. Construction continued through the early 1970s, and the mill opened to the public in 1972 with the water wheel turning the stones and grinding corn and wheat. This is the standing with Route 7 right behind you. This is where the head race comes out from under Route 7 in the spillway on the north side. As you can see, they're very much clearing with bulldozers the mill race at the time. So as Amy has explained to me, massive clearing and grading was happening on the site as part of the reconstruction before it became a historic district and transferred over to the park board. Next slide, please. Fast forwarding to more modern history. In the mid-2000s, VDOT had planned to widen Route 7 to a 6-lane facility, and the design also raised the height of the road due to Colburn Run flooding the roadway during storm events. If you've ever seen swiftwater event rescues that they've had, they were pretty severe. During the planning design process, a pedestrian tunnel under Route 7 was negotiated between VDOT and Park Authority to reconnect the bisected mill parcel that had been severed in 1941. Oh, sorry. Sorry. In this photograph, this is from 2022. They have shifted the road. You can see the southern head and tunnel, which is technically filled with water at the moment. In that photograph, they constructed the road in 2 halves, and they built a pedestrian tunnel under the road when they did each half. So this is mid-construction with the clearing and grading that happened on the site. Next slide, please. This is a substantially complete photograph. It was taken with spectrometry. all the Google Street Views are going to show you still mid-construction. So this is probably the best photograph that we have of from an aerial standpoint, so you can see the widened road, the shared use path on either side, the completed pedestrian tunnel and its location to the mill on the north side. You can also see the mill race on the north side. The hillside has been all sodded, and it's because they raised the road, it's been increased in height, so it's pretty steep slope what we have going out there. Next slide, please. This just gives you a little bit of a timeline of what we're working with in terms of milestones, including the widening project. So in spring of 2019, the construction on the roadway began. In spring of 2022, we had received a request for a trail project by the Friends of Colvin Run. I put the wrong one in there. Sorry about that. I have another rural lake project. It's the Friends of Colvin Run and the Dravensville Supervisor's Office. Their concern was that obviously we would have a tunnel that would go to nowhere without planning. I will note that it was a design build project. Therefore, the grading for the project never really got finalized till about 2022, 2023. And so we had a hard time trying to design a trail project while waiting for that project to finish. But since we were coming to substantial completion, we started taking a look at it. In spring of 2023, the Park Authority had received funding for a project. And we then put out a request for proposals for a feasibility study for a trail and stream crossing. This would include wetlands mapping, a hydraulic study of Colvin Run to consider where a stream crossing could go, and some geotechnical investigations as well as tree surveying. In spring of 2024, the pedestrian tunnel was deemed substantially complete by VDOT, and we've been doing some investigative studies, some site work, some site visits with our project team, which includes natural resources staff, cultural resources staff, trail building staff, and others in the Park Authority to try to get an insight onto what we're going to find and where we can put it. And tonight, this is where we are at the workshop to kind of brief you on the project, show you where we are, show you what we have, what we're considering, and get some feedback on it. One of the things we're going to talk about is that we're trying to reuse an existing bridge and locate it here. Right now, VDOT is working on the widening of Route 29. And if you see it, you'll see a pedestrian bridge sticking out in the road that's been cleared near the Kate Hanley shelter. It's a steel bridge, Core 10 weathering steel bridge that is actually in really good shape. We've had it surveyed and for structural integrity, and it's in good shape. And so we would like to try to save some money and reuse this bridge at this location. One thing I've learned in my new position is you can't just put a bridge anywhere. You have to make sure that it matches pretty close to the context of where it came from. So we have to make sure that the hydrology works and the size works, because obviously we can't add on to the bridge. So locating it has been that one. We are hoping, so this summer, they're going to be moving the bridge and we're going to store it. Then we're quite surprised that the bridge is actually in good shape, can be reused. We're just hoping VDOT doesn't drop it when they lift it and deliver it to us. So that's the last hurdle we have for that bridge. If we can reuse it, it'd be great. If they drop it, we got another problem. In summer or fall, we're expecting to come back for an ARB approval item with you, but that depends on a couple factors. We would then be going to summer, fall of next year for permitting. The bridge requires a building permit. I will say we are not fully sure yet what kind of permit we need for the natural surface trail. We're still looking into those details, but we felt we needed to come to you today to show you the whole project and get your insight on it. And then we would be anticipating construction in spring, summer 2026, I believe. But again, that's very loose schedule at the moment. Next slide, please. So this is our concept plan that we've developed. It includes mapping for the wetlands, which do show up on the north side and the south side. I will say that what we do on the north side, we're considering phase 2, where we haven't quite gotten to what we're going to do there. So you'll see us again, I'm sure, in the future. On the south side, you can see in this picture, the trail is identified by the pink line, which comes out of the pedestrian tunnel on the south side of Route 7. It heads northwest towards the Mill Pond area. The area in the blue dashed is what is defined as the mill race area on the south side. It would be heading south past the pond, down a naturally cleared area already, and then working its way down towards Colvin Run Stream, where then we would then locate a bridge to cross it and then connect to the Rails River Trail, which is shown in the black dashed line at the bottom. We have completed tree surveys. The intent is not to clear trees on the trail is if we can help it. There have been, you see in the photographs, a lot of trees have fallen, which are in the way of the path. So obviously we would cut through those to clear them. The most impact to trees that we have right now would be where the bridge gets located. We have very little choice of where we can put it because of reusing the bridge that we have. We have to locate it in a specific spot that matches the conditions it came from. So we are a little tight on that, but plus also it's certain width. So once you get into the width of the stream, the velocities have to be okay, but then also we have to be able to fit the bridge where we're going to put it in. So that is one of the challenging factors that we have in order to save money for this. Next photo. I did a couple weeks ago walk the site. These photos were taken with full spring bloom, so you can kind of see at the moment how green it is. What I did was, and I put this in your submission packet so you probably see it better in your packet, but I started in the #1 photograph in the top left, standing in the tunnel, and the pink line shows you kind of the path that we're proposing for the conceptual trail. It would turn right out of the tunnel and then head along the embankment that was created to as part of the Route 7 project and the wetlands that are in front of you. It would head towards the mill pond, walk along the edge of which then you can see in the second row of the first photograph that you have to vault over a tree. So we'd cut a hole through there so you get through. Continue through the mill race area until you eventually have to get down the slope, which is shown in the bottom left photograph. That's taken looking back up the hill. Once you cleared the hill and come down the embankment, you head toward the flat open area, which Tom and I cannot understand why it's cleared. It's never been overgrown, but this is really the path that we'd want to take without having to disturb any more natural vegetation than possible. And then you work your way over to about the middle part of the map there. Next slide, please. These photographs are taken in the wintertime, so you also have another chance to see what it looks like when there's no vegetation as well. It's picked back up about the middle of the path in the top left photograph there. Again, that's the clearing that you saw in the previous photograph, but in the wintertime. You would then make your way down further south, and then that's into the more flat area of the southern part of the site, where in the middle row, we are showing you where the proposed bridge location is considered to go at the moment. The tree with the 3 trunks is sort of kind of the locating feature in case when you look through these photographs. The bottom 3 photographs are actually taken of the bridge that we would like to reuse. So you can see it's a weathered steel Core-10. I think it's 45 feet by 10 feet bridge that hopefully gets moved safely. Next slide, please. Again, it's just a more close-up photograph of the bridge we'd like to reuse. We're probably going to redeck it. They do have to remove some of the decking to pick it up and secure it when they lift it off the site. But obviously we would redeck it when we put it back in place. Next slide. What we are considering, which, and Tom can give you a little bit more detail on this, Park Authority has been traditionally building paved asphalt paths. We are now embarking back to what was more like Laurel Hill, 2007 timeframe was probably the last time we actually designed a natural surface trail. If you've been to the trails down on Laurel Hill, they're the mountain biking trails, I believe, are the ones that have been designed by IMBA, International Mountain Bike Association. This is not going to be a mountain bike trail. It is a hiking recreational trail, so it's not going to be as wide as the Laurel Hill trails, but this is a good representation of sort of what it would look like once it was constructed. The intent is to use the natural materials around there to disturb as little as possible. I gave you a narrative in the submission package of kind of what to expect for the construction approach that they would take, the materials and the equipment that they would use. I believe it states that the even the mechanical equipment, the blades wouldn't be bigger than 3 feet wide. So it's really sort of a smaller equipment to be used, not what was done in 1969, the photographs that we saw.
How many more slides do you have?
Just 2.
Okay.
Just wanted to note that this trail is on a sloped hillside, much like the Coleman Run Trail will be, and there's a cross slope, so water doesn't collect on the natural on the surface and erode it. So the idea is to be a sustainable trail that's not paved. So next slide, please. This just gives you again examples of natural surface details that would be used here. We don't have the specifics yet of what's going to be built where. We're still working that out, but at least we're giving you an idea of what it would look like. I don't think we would use all of these, but I wanted to at least give you a good idea of what would be possible. Like this. Thank you.
All right.
Questions and anything you'd like to ask?
Look for questions, comments from the board members on this one.
Do you have to do archaeology along the trail, like test pits?
Yeah. Yes, as part of our project team. And so we will be doing archaeology study through this area for the trail. And we'll also be doing mitigation for the tree impacts as well. So we do have natural and cultural resources staff on our team. So they will be reviewing our plans, giving us feedback, and we'll be mitigating any of those impacts and working around any things that we need to if we find. So, and Amy can speak to a little more about that if you need more detail.
And this type of, we saw a trail at a private site that was going to be ADA accessible. This is not ADA accessible. No.
Nope.
It doesn't need to be. I know that. I was just curious.
No, we had our ADA staff come with us on our project team and evaluate it, and they were like,
no, okay.
No, the grades are just too steep. Even especially when you get outside of the tunnel here, you have to kind of go up a little bit inclined. It's narrow. It would do far more damage, I believe, trying to make it ADA. And the north side too is even down a steep hill. So
I think it's a great presentation. It's because you sat through so many of these that you put together a great presentation. So I appreciate it.
I tried.
I mean, I gotta say, the archaeology question was, I was figuring Ms. Mangan was gonna ask it if Ms. Hammock didn't ask it too, but I mean, if you look at our guidelines, this is something that I think is so out of the way and unobtrusive in the situation. I don't see why we wouldn't want to support it, but that's just me.
Good project.
One question I had for you, and I was asking Amy, is before we come for an action item for you, would you want the archaeology done before or a commitment to do one? Because obviously we have to coordinate with Amy's group, and if there is something, their team is the one leading that. We obviously have to do a commitment to it. If we run into something, we're gonna have to come back up and rethink something.
That's where I was just thinking, based on the narrow parameters, you have to actually locate that bridge, whether you have to shift things a little bit, like just wait to do the archaeology until.
Yeah.
That's exactly why.
Yeah.
Well, this is gonna be a triple threat, so we've got to see you for this. If you're doing a street crossing, we'll probably need the core permit in section 106. And then there's our own park policies that require us to do archaeology here. So I'll get to review it 3 times or maybe just once. But until we have a LOD, I can't contract the work to decide what's next. And so we just wanted to make sure this was feasible so that we can get an LOD.
I'm glad you're coming to us now before you do 106, so me and Ms. Mangum don't have to leave
That's true.
and probably not be involved, particularly me who deals with the Army Corps of Engineers as an agency.
Permits. So anyway, just one question on logistics. How are you actually getting, or how will VDOT get the bridge to that location?
Well, I didn't show you in the photograph. I'll make sure I include the rails, the trail pictures more. Currently our maintenance staff, they can't, the pump for the mill is on the south side. And so they have to access it. They have to get their equipment, the Kubota trail tractor on a truck, cross Route 7, drive it over, unload it, run it down the rails to River Trail, which is wider and gravel when it intersects with Carper's Farm. And then there's a natural ford that they cross with that to get to the pump. We'd be coming in the same way.
Okay.
With the bridge. So, and Tom, you can probably explain a little bit more.
The location where we're actually putting the bridge is just off of the main trail. It's not like it's a mile into the woods.
Okay.
It's a few hundred feet.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's sparse.
So it's the reverse from our direction, from the way you took us. Instead, you're going the opposite
Short way.
existing trail.
We'd be
Okay.
The trail's going that way, but the bridges, we're all coming in from Carper's Farm. And that's a big 8 or 10 foot wide, with thick stone on it.
And if you've been out there recently, VDOT has put new culvert in here. This has all been widened and improved and things of that nature. So we'd be coming in from Carper's Farm to access.
I'd be adverse in saying that our landscape architect is not here.
No,
And if there were one person who I think would have lots to say right now, and for the sake of the hour, I think I'm happy. Maybe. I do think it might be helpful to potentially suggest a conversation with him.
If you wanted to site visit or.
I could, I'm not gonna commit Mr. Columbia to anything like that, but he has been more than happy to do things like that in the future. He is probably the one that's gonna have more questions about the trail proposal that you're gonna have. I just thinking out loud of the one board member we don't have, who I think might have a lot to say.
Makes sense.
So if that's an option, or if that's something you all want to offer, we could definitely.
Yeah, no, happy, it's really sick right now and there's lots of things to crawl over. But yeah, no, happy to go out there if he wants to see it, to give some idea of what we're dealing with. We also have our natural resources staff too, so we have to make them happy as well. So because of our constraints with the bridge, we had tried to locate it a little further east of where we're putting it. We had found out that there was an easement, but we're the grantor and now the grantee due to successors in the sign. So now the historic district is there. It was put in before the historic district to protect the site. Other things have been put in place. We're not as concerned about that easement anymore, but we then have the limitations of reusing the bridge. If we cannot reuse this bridge, this project is not going anywhere very fast because right now it's currently saving us at least $150,000 to reuse a bridge. We don't have that money. We were only allocated 200,000 to start, and we're trying to do this within that. If we have to buy a new bridge, we're doing a whole second funding and have to find that funding.
We'd
And
have to find the funding, but the location and the size of the bridge and the type of bridge is not really gonna change that much.
Yeah.
It would be 50 feet or 55 feet instead of 45 feet, and it might be 50 feet over from where we're showing it here. I mean, it's very little change in the location.
we can't go too far to the left because that's where the ford will be. I think in the original intent of the pedestrian bridge, I think maintenance park op staff were hoping they could use the pedestrian tunnel to not have to truck their equipment over. Because of the grading, the wetlands and everything else that happened with the project, that's just not feasible at this point. So they still have to truck the trailer around. So we just can't disturb that ford so they can get to so that limits us on the left and then it gets faster on the right. So we're really trying to find the sweet spot and make sure we can use this. But if we can't, then we have to.
I think, well, so far what you're hearing from us though is, I think we seem happy with the idea. So.
Anything else you think we need to let me know? Happy to provide more
I think
information.
contextual images you were providing were very helpful. I think, I really think my encouraging comment would be to see if we could connect you with Mr. Plumpy.
Got it.
Because I think if there's anyone who's gonna have some questions at the next, when you come for an approval, that is gonna be him, obviously, and you've got Rachel who's giving you some insight also on the archaeology. So I'm not hearing anything else from anyone. So, Mr. Burns, mine.
I'm kind of jealous of that bridge.
Why?
Because this organization, this body approved a bridge, Creek and Holland Hills. It's a yucky, ugly. And you got one that fits in the natural setting, stuff like that, and so.
It's sustainable.
Yeah.
Reuse.
So, yeah, so you got a good bridge. If you can't use it, I have to.
Remember, if VDOT drops it, no one can.
We just gotta drop. It's gonna get moved pretty soon. I think they're clearing a staging area to get the crane in to lift it. But we just can't have them drop it. So far, Tom had gotten another bridge before. It was completely rusted. This is actually in good structural shape, which is kind of a surprise. So
Let's hope no dropping the bridge.
Yeah. We were getting lucky with that project, so we were trying to find a good place for it, and this seems to be a good. We can make it pretty good.
Thank you so much.
No, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
All right, our last workshop, ARB 24 LOR 10 WS 9518 Workhouse Way Fixture Conversions. This was a workshop for the last meeting we had in the Lorton Laurel Hill MOA eligible district. The applicant is proposing to convert the existing features attached to the buildings W02 through W16 to LED fixtures, resulting in less electrical loads to the county grid. Laura Seidler and Sado represent the application.
Yes.
How well I did there. Obviously, since you've been before, I think the big focus would be update from where we were last time and
Absolutely. So a couple of things. Proposed project, for the purpose of the project is to improve the site lighting and illumination for the safety of the visitors and the employees. We also want to go in and correct some code compliance issues with the existing gooseneck lightings that's on the exterior of the buildings at the doors for all the quad buildings. There's also unpermitted lights that are on the exterior of the buildings, internal to the quads, at the top of the A-frames. And we'll show you on the pictures in a couple of minutes here where those are at. Address the high failure rates of the existing lighting. The fixtures have also exceeded their useful life, and the maintenance just isn't feasible on them. So we have fixtures that are not operating.
Okay.
And then, of course, to reduce the energy consumption to align with the county's operating energy strategy. How we selected the new lights. Engaged with multiple electrical engineers, and specialty lighting companies to look for lighting fixtures that were going to be appropriate for the use out there. We wanted to match the existing light fixtures as closely as possible and identify fixtures that would allow for reuse of the existing mounting holes and penetrations that are already there. For the pole-mounted gooseneck fixtures, we wanted to ensure that the new fixtures can be mounted on the existing poles and that the foundations would support the new gooseneck fixtures. In addition to that, per the industry standard and code requirements, we need to move away from the HID and fluorescent lighting. So bringing in the LED lighting with the new fixtures. And we have professional engineers looking at the exterior lighting luminaires for lighting levels and recommend fixtures and lamps based on those findings with the goal of improving the lighting for security and to improve the visual environment. Looking at expressing the quality of the lighting over the quantity of the lighting. So we didn't want to increase the number of light fixtures out there. We wanted to stay with the same amount while removing the ones that were never permitted. We're not replacing those. We're also matching the lighting color and levels that were approved for the lighting on buildings W13 and 15, which were just renovated. And where possible, integrating photo sensors at the fixture instead of having something additional mounted on the buildings. And as I said before, we're not increasing the quantity of the lights. We'll get into the actual fixtures here in a second, but there is one instance, a couple of different light fixtures where we're going to have to put in some new penetrations. When we do that, we're going to try and make sure that we go through the mortar, not the brick. And where old penetrations are abandoned, so where those unpermitted lights were put on the buildings, we're going to make sure that we do the repairs per the standards that were previously set by WRA. And we gave that to you guys with all the documentation on the submittals. The same that were accepted by ARB to do the repairs on the quad arches, the W16 repairs, as well as the recent work that was done on W13 and W15. That's kind of the background on it. So having said that, getting into the different lighting fixtures that are out there, and understand what I was just talking about. So when we talk about lights that have the code compliance issues that are not installed correctly, that are a hazard, we're talking about the gooseneck fixtures that are on the exterior of the buildings, on the outside of the buildings here. Sorry, if you can go back to that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. See. So those are the ones that are on the exterior of the building. So the electrical to those was not ever installed correctly with the original project that was done on those installations. The fixtures that are installed that are not permitted, are the eye fixtures right here. So those were put up by the Arts Foundation for a wedding event many years ago. They did not come before ARB. They did not ask for permission to do that. They're on each and every building that's out there. If you, I can't really zoom in on it, but there's two penetrations. There's one penetration for the fixture, and there's a separate penetration for a gray box where part of the electric is coming through. So we're gonna have to do repairs on both of those to close that up. And we're not proposing to put any additional or new fixture out there to replace that. So just kind of cleaning that up for what's out there. The other light fixtures that we're proposing on the replacement, again, trying to match as closely as possible to what's out there today. The only difference really being that they'll be LED, and obviously these aren't manufactured anymore. The fixtures, like this one here, that's what's similar to what's out at W13 and 15 with the current renovation. So that'll match that. Those will all be a glossy black finish on them. That's what's original to the site, so we want to go back and match that. There's one light fixture out there that's white. It's always been white, so we're going to go back with the same color on that one. That's this one here. It's a little spot that's on the corner of the buildings. Why it's white, but it's always been white, so we're going to go back with white. And then on the pack lights, same thing. Those would be black pack lights that are out there. We did take out a couple of the fixtures. We kind of showed you some of the pictures on them so you could see how they're mounted on there. So where we can reuse those same mounting holes, we're going to reuse them. And we tried to show that in here where you can see the existing light fixtures. We gave them letters and then showed you exactly which ones we can use the mounting on and which ones we can't. Where we can't reuse mountings, we'll make sure that, again, we clean it up. We use the right mortar for it, repair the bricks correctly, and then we put the replacement fixture on there.
Daniel, we saw this once before.
Yes.
Okay.
But now, no more parking light.
No more parking lights.
No, we're not going to touch the parking lights.
I wanted that to be clear to all the other members, because that was a topic during the last one. That is removed from this, what you're coming forward with. Okay.
And is anything gonna have this? This is just showing the fixture, not the finish. This
No, the finish is down below
matte black.
matte black.
Okay.
Actually glossy black.
Well, it's much clearer than last time we saw it. So this key is really helpful. I feel like I really understand what's happening. So thank you.
And it's much more in harmony with the historic site as opposed to the last public sites for the parking lots.
I guess the only question I had, and this was just something, and I'm not a lighting expert, and we had a member that had a lot of expertise in lighting, but they stepped away from the board. But I think my only concern is that, and this is something that I just want to make sure is being considered, is that the color and luminosity of these lights, there's consistency throughout, because you see a lot of these are all kind of layered on top of each other. The only thing I'd hate to see happen is we have different colors of light.
So if you go to the next slide. So we did look at the lighting and the lighting level.
Oh, there we go. All right. See, you knew what I was going to ask you.
We're hitting for 1 or 2 foot candle average. So that's what the table shows.
Yeah, for the security levels out there, we really want to try and hit 2 wherever we can. Where we can't get the 2 because we don't want to add an additional fixture, then, a 1 will satisfy for security, but 2 is really where you'd prefer to be.
Okay. But but I can't disagree with my other colleagues that this is so much more understandable.
Sure.
Burton, sorry, I didn't.
Yeah. Mr. Zellman needed forward.
Yeah.
I didn't see this before. I wasn't here for that meeting, but looking through this stuff, only one thing concerns me, and to me, it's a significant concern. This is an arts complex, and color is important to all the people who work here and people who come to buy things here and all. And I noticed that the lamps you're proposing, they're 4,000 Kelvin.
Yes.
This is fine. I'm okay with that, but they're only 70 CRI. And that is a measure of the ability of the lamp to render colors accurately. And so I noticed that there's 80 available. It'd be better if you could get it up to 90. But at the very least, I'd suggest you go up to the 4,000 K 80 CRI lamps.
Okay.
If there's 90 available, that's even better.
Yeah, we could do that. We were really trying to match what had been previously.
Because what we're discussing here is
13 and 15.
physical fixtures and coverage and lumens and stuff like that. But the character of the ability of the lamps to render colors accurately, I think is really critical, particularly in this location.
We can do that.
Yeah.
It'll look different than what's on 13 and 15 right now. So that's the only thing to make sure that, and
Well, just relamping something's not a big deal if you have to do that, but I don't, what is the CRI on 13 and 15?
what we propose right there.
The 70.
I mean, we're trying to, yeah, we're kind of,
All that would mean is that it wouldn't change the number of lumens you're able to, cast and stuff like that. It's just that the colors would be rendered more faithfully.
okay.
Means your beer's not gonna look just right at Money Man, right? It might be a little slightness in the amber because their CRI is lower.
Well, I don't know how beer would shift. But I think in arts complex, you need to get.
Look, it's getting late.
You need to be able to see the colors accurately.
And 13 and 15 are across the road.
Yeah.
So there's.
It's right down on a, you go back to one.
Yeah, there's some space between them. Okay, and I will say, I also appreciate the detailed information about the repairs related to the brick and mortar there. And the fact that you're pulling from existing information that we provided in the past, that's, I think that's, in prior applications, I know you two had to endure a long meeting to hear us talk about that, but that's one thing we're very concerned about. If we're going to be removing things, we want the repair to be the best as possible. And when we're patching penetrations, want a new light to look good on a repaired surface, not a new light just, and then be like, wow, what happened there?
yeah, and where we need to, if we have brick that we need to replace, we can. We have enough stock of the brick made from the former inmates.
I'd ask if any members, if anything else you think that the applicant need to have for when they came for a application, if we're missing something. I would say, again, similar to the last one, Mr. Plumpy had a lot to say about this one. Obviously, I know, he's one member, but if there's any interfacing with that, that would be very helpful to get his feedback. If he has any interest in that, I can always ping him on this after the meeting to see if he has any observations on either of these two prior applications, because I think it would be helpful for him to share his insight too, because if he's here for the application, he's going to share it. Other than that, I'm not seeing any other comments, so I guess we'll look to see you all in the very near future. Would that be?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
For staying as long as you did. I really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. There are no presentations. We're moving the board and staff items. We're going to attempt to do this as expeditiously as possible. Review and action on the approval of the previous month's minutes from May 9th, 2024. I would look for a motion to approve those. Ms. Mangum.
Move that the ARB approves the May 9th, 2024 meeting minutes and pay the clerk, Brian Johnson.
All right, we have a second. Seconded by Ms. Murray. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstention? All right. Oh,
I'll abstain. I wasn't at that meeting.
Mr. Burns abstains. He wasn't at the meeting and he didn't watch it. All right, treasurer report. We have an ending balance as of May 31, 2024 of $13,931.90. Don't think there's anything more to talk about with that one, unless we want to talk about the budget.
That number will drop because Ms. Orr's reimbursement is
Yay.
included in that. John's just went through this month.
But for the third super secret probation review. Okay, excellent. All right, administrative remote participation policy adoption. So Dana, do you want to talk about the changes that happened to this policy briefly?
Yes, so I will preface this by saying I brought this forward as quickly as possible. With the guidance, the recommendation from OCA is for all BACs to update this as soon as possible. The current policy that you adopted, the last time it was adopted was 2022. That is still in place, so we can still allow for remote participation. If you want to wait a month and thoroughly read the 4-page policy, that is an option.
So one of the biggest changes is providing a little bit more details on some of the exemptions.
There were a lot of changes in the legislative cycle. Most do not impact the ARB because you are one of the 4 BACs that is not allowed to participate fully virtually. It does expand the definition of, or expand the participation of someone who is remote to count towards the quorum if they are remote for a disability or as a caretaker of someone with a disability. That is defined. That is not a temporary disability, so that I am not a lawyer. If you feel like you have the case and you can say that, I am not going to question it. That's what I will say. But if we get to the point of having quorum difficulties, it does make it easier because someone who can only participate remotely can count to the quorum in the room. That is a big change. The other big change is which does not really affect the remote participation, but out of the cycle is they're kind of moving back into the definitions of public meetings for FOIA and that interpretation. So we don't have to be as strict as we have been. I would still recommend that everyone proceed with caution. But if more than 2 members are at an event, as long as you are not sitting together or discussing what is discussed there, that does not meet the definition of public meeting in the way that it did before. So we have some more flexibility. I think this body is very good at not commingling outside the screen, so we don't really have that concern. If you all were at an event of something that might come before the ARB later, just do not, the guidance recommended last summer was don't clump, so do not clump.
Legal term?
And that's kind of it. If there is something that is if multiple members want to attend a BOS meeting or something and discuss it, just let me know and I can notice it on the public meetings calendar and we're good. But there are some refined definitions. That's all in the branch update. So the biggest thing is that definition of disability and the changes to counting towards quorum.
So the question is, we can take a motion to adopt it, or we can wait till next. Oh,
Like if you're sick, that's a disability.
I'm gonna make,
Mr. Zellman wishes to make a motion.
I'm gonna move that the ARB adopts the remote participation policy and direct staff to finalize the draft document for use.
We have a second. Seconded by Ms. Murray. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. All right, fiscal 2025 contribution. How much money did we not get?
So as I said previously, we did get a significant bump. I think it's a 45% increase, which is positive. We're not awarded the $16,000 expense that you asked for technology support. But we did get the additional funding for the recording secretary for up to 9 second meetings per calendar year. So that it's very positive because the caseload is not whittling down at all. We are projected to hit 90 this cycle. Before Holland Hills, the average was like 25. So we only had 1 in Holland Hills tonight.
It's $5,000 houses, I tell you.
That one was
maybe 6 or 7 then.
Yeah, the full amount that's being awarded for the next fiscal year is $15,972. That will be in the account on July 1st. So there will be that big bump that happens every summer. I do want to remind everyone that you just recently approved up to a $750 expense for refreshments for the camp training. So that will come out in the fall. But you do have money in your coffers to do what you wish with it. That is what I will say.
dates for the camp training.
That's still being worked through.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, going to the brewery as a meeting. Okay, thanks for that update there. Discussion updates, reports. I don't think we have any to update on, correct?
Correct.
Correspondence, the monthly DPD Heritage Resource Branch update was in the materials that we were sent. I don't know if there's any questions. Oh, John has his.
Quick questions,
Yeah.
if I could, on that whole thing.
Yeah.
I went to the Gum Springs meeting on May 28th and watched that. The only thing that struck me as odd was that none of the presenters looked like the community they were presenting to. Just an observation. The Design Guidelines Project, I got my postcard. I think I'm the only one here who lives in an HOD.
Yep.
So that came, you can be.
Good to know.
Service.
When is it delivered?
Yeah. Then the rezoning, Lucan's Lane, Mount Vernon District, where they're asking for the phase 1 phase 1 architectural survey. Did they do one for all the houses that were torn down across the street from this site?
I do not know the answer to that, but I can look into it.
Yeah, that would be interesting because it was a very nice early 20th century street.
I do not know if we are getting the study, but that is the ask.
Okay.
So that's
Okay.
always the battle, right? We ask and then sometimes receive.
And then going back to the Boss versus Wheeler fix.
Yes.
How does that affect site visits?
It doesn't really, because if we were doing multiple members at a site visit, we would have to notice it as a public meeting. It would have to be publicly accessible. So if that's happening somewhere that can accommodate that, we can still do that. If it's like the Drover's Rest visits, we would probably still have to cycle through.
That was
but
kind of my question.
Holland Hills house tour, I don't know who's there. Don't clump. Don't talk about a house that you. That's
had 3 people that I'm aware of from this board here.
And one person disguised herself. I didn't even notice. She had been saying.
I would like to highlight
Should get t-shirt.
2 other things from that branch update. We did find out at the beginning of the month that we were awarded the CLG grant that we proposed for the National Register nomination for Randall Estates. So that is being drawn up and the work will begin after the contract is awarded. We were also officially awarded the amount for the camp training. So we will be hosting the one for Northern Virginia this fall. Very exciting.
I mean, we'll
awaiting news about the cost share grant for the postmoderns.
hopefully they seem to really like us. So hopefully we will have the final dates for the camp training.
We are targeting a Friday in October.
Okay.
As much as I remember.
All right.
I have a hold
I
on.
just want to make sure we can get on folks' calendars as soon as we can, so folks can possibly.
Kind of, I think, wait, that has to be awarded before it can be dealt with, but we,
Who's invited?
all members of the ARB, it's also going to be, we accounted for it being open to the History Commission as well. And then it's open to all CLGs. So it's kind of first come, first serve in terms of registration spot. The budget that we set on accounts for all of our BAC and staff to attend.
Excellent. Okay, Pohick Church accessibility ramp.
Will there
Yes.
ever be a day without that on the agenda?
Well, this is a very exciting update. The package that I forwarded to all of you has the material samples and they provided photos holding the samples against the extant building features. What we need now is to identify a member or members to go physically look at them because that was the modification for the approval. And I cannot approve their building permit until the modification is met.
I went and looked today. I couldn't find them.
They're not out.
Mm.
They have a site visit with their archaeology consultant next Thursday at 9 a.m. So we can piggy if that works for anyone's schedule. June 20th at 9 a.m. I can also be there and then I can clear the permit because the permit is dependent on both of those visits happening. The other modification was the coordinating with archaeology for the footings before construction begins. So they're doing that next Thursday and then we can look at the samples.
How long will it take?
As long as it takes you to look. This, I will say,
I have a Microsoft Teams at 10 a.m. So
The
if I can have Teams at 10 a.m. I'm happy.
the letter is written and the link, the way it was worded was the ARB member sees, reviews them before construction. So there's not really like I think they look nice. They're passionate about the property. They're very good stewards. They're not rushed. It's taken a while to get to this point.
Should be 15 or 20 minutes on site.
Yeah.
I mean, I could go. I'm just not an architect. I'm a lawyer.
I mean, I'll send,
I think I can go.
okay, I'll send out an email and then whoever claims it that way, and we can aim for 9 a.m. on Thursday.
Okay.
Okay, great.
Looking at the site today, I'm concerned about the new materials are going to look new against the historic materials. So I don't know that we discussed that with them, but that's the one thing that kind
I
of.
think that should go too.
Well, maybe all ARB members can walk through the dirt and then walk on the ramp afterwards. I don't know what the.
I think we normally get jokes from you, Daniel. That was pretty good.
They did. I was told they're trying to get the construction done because they have 2 weddings scheduled in September. So they're trying to make it presentable and not look like a construction site. I think it is. They seem to be very excited that it is going to look new.
John, it sounds like you're going to be able to make it there.
I think that I can.
Okay.
I'm gonna let you.
I need to double check my schedule. I should be able to squeeze it in. That's,
Okay.
All right.
I mean, we're
Great.
the two closest, so.
Well, that's what Daniel and I talked about in our pre-meeting for this. I know the
sucker
two,
these two guys.
Beautiful.
You can both.
chair and vice chair, you know, right? Got to get you guys ready. All right, that's correspondence, old business. So John just showed the design guidelines, public engagement schedule went out. We have the dates. You all should have been emailed them by Daniel. So I'm going to be for certain at the July 8th one at Lake Ann, and I'll also be at the July 29th one at Fairfax Station at the VFW location. Obviously, you can tell by the meeting we had today, we will probably have an audience for the Lake Ann one without a doubt. While the topic of today's meeting is not the topic of discussion there, we can expect in high attendance at that one. But I plan to be at least that one. I would encourage members to see if you can make one, just, you know, if there's one you're particularly interested in, to hear what's said. Obviously, Holland Hills will probably have a lot of feedback too, because that's our other big overlay district.
I think both Steve and I will not be able to attend that one.
We have conflicts that evening.
Yeah,
Wait,
wedding anniversary.
what better way to spend one's wedding anniversary?
I'll make that argument.
We know how that goes.
Maybe the last.
So with all this location, like for example, the one holding in Lake Ann, not necessarily only talking about Lake Ann.
Correct, right. So I have 2 slides to show. I'll be very quick because I know that it's 10 p.m. I'm glad that John got his postcard. I have not been told that anyone received it, so at least they went out. But just to update all of you, because we've had a lot of progress in the last month, we had postcards go out to every mailing address in all 15 HODs and the Lorton MOA eligible district. We had social media posts on Nextdoor and Facebook. As of last Friday, the Nextdoor post had reached over 17,000 people in Fairfax County, so we're having good engagement there. The project landing page is live, as is the public input page. All materials have my contact information on them, so I can receive feedback that way. We have also sent a memo to all internal county agencies. There's been a memo to all Board of Supervisors, Land Use and Communications aides. I'm presenting at the Board of Supervisor Land Use aides meeting tomorrow morning about the project. And then we have a letter that will be going out soon from our planning division director to adjacent jurisdictions and local, state, and federal agencies, as well as the MOA signatories for the MOA eligible districts. So we are blasting everyone's information. The comment window is open until August 14th, which is 2 weeks after the last information session. So if you go to the next slide. So the first one we kick off next Tuesday. We have 5 in-person and 2 virtual meetings. Mount Vernon, the one in the Mount Vernon district, we scheduled so early because their land use aide, Nick Reinhardt, is leaving the county next Friday. So we were trying to have him attend before there's that transfer of responsibility. They are spread out throughout the county, hopefully to make them as accessible to the people in the HODs that are closest to the session location. But the presentation is very general. I have no way of knowing who or how many people will attend. So if it is just 10, it will be a very informal open house. If it is 100, I will make people queue up to ask the question that they're going to ask. So just let me know, give me a heads up if you are going to try to attend one so that we have a seat for you and are prepared, because we will be introducing whoever's in attendance at the top. I just do want to reiterate, this is a very, very focused project. So we are talking about the design guidelines documents, soliciting feedback on how successful the consultant was in meeting the goals that the ARB laid out starting in 2016, in making documents that are more user-friendly and have visual examples and are current.
Will pastries be at the meeting?
No,
No.
no, I'll be presenting.
I don't think we have the money to pay tracers to do anything anymore now.
We are scraping, we're every last bit of the money. And then the
other big thing is we're not treating these like free workshop sessions. I will cut people off if we start talking about the ventilation shaft at a meeting. We're not, it's very focused.
I'm liking this.
Or any project. I mean, say Paul and Hills, like, there are plenty of folks that want to ask questions about ideas they might have. Again,
We can
not
talk
the goal.
about the guidelines and the review process and what it looks like when you're coming to the ARB, what it looks like after you get ARB approval, before you get your permit, or after you get your permit. So there is a level of hypothetical, but the benefit of the fact that this is not a plan amendment or a planning study is that we can direct the conversation. So I will do it politely and efficiently, but it's very targeted. So I just want anyone who's attending to keep that in mind. I am not expecting anyone to sit there and just talk about what they would like to see for a property that they have no idea what it looks like or what is coming. We want them to be useful conversations and meetings.
Be interesting in itself.
Yeah. So yeah, just make sure you let Daniel know. And obviously Daniel, keep me in the loop, because like I said, I'm going to be at least 2 of them.
Yeah.
You need us at the virtual meetings?
You can definitely attend. So the one on June 26th, we're going to film, and then that will be posted on the project webpage for anyone who's not able to attend the meeting. This first round of communications was really focusing on the meetings, information sessions. We're not calling them meetings. And then the second round of social media posts is going to be directing traffic to the public input and feedback part of the process.
And we don't have an Instagram.
No, it's been posted on the Department of Planning and Development Facebook page, and next door, and our DPD communications person, I believe, also did targeted posts to the neighborhoods around the HODs. But obviously those boundaries do not perfectly align with the.
Much as the idea of an ARB Instagram.
Right, so we did.
Wild.
Awesome.
So that's kind of just the big update. It's live now. You can visit the page. You can take the survey.
I'll note, if you do look at them, because for some of you, that might be the first time you've ever looked at them, or recently, because it's been a long time coming. That's part of the reason, Gabrielle, why the money's running so thin is we are trying to get this across the finish line. But I know Elise identified at least one issue on one. So if you see something, these have been combed through, but it doesn't mean they're perfect. So if you find something, let us know. So
If you see something, say.
see something, say something. Okay, if no one's got anything on that, I'm going to do new business super fast. Last week, I got to talk with the new director of DPD, Kelly Atkinson. I basically made our case for why we're important, why DPD needs to work well with us, why Daniel, Jonathan, Denise, and all the team are fantastic, and we are super lucky to have the staff that we have. So I said that a lot to kind of emphasize how wonderful they are. I emphasized that the fact that we didn't get the 16,000 for the tech is frustrating, because we are one of the regulatorily required boards, and yet we live in the antiquated style. And I think that was a little shocking to her, that she just realized that unlike the other boards that meet with style and fancy, we don't. We use our own technology. We just got a nicer room. People, I think we're antiquated despite the fact of our needs of meeting digital needs. So I made that case to her. I also emphasized that we are always the board that is trying to get to a yes for a project. We want to make it the best it can be. We don't want to be perceived as a board of no. We want to see it as a board of solutions, which she also appreciated. I also called out 2 particular county entities that I think we could work better with. I mentioned the fact that Fairfax DOT does not always get along with us, and that if they worked more collaboratively with us, that would be better. And I mentioned that the County Park Authority is in a tough spot because they don't get enough money. And so they come to us sometimes for projects that don't have enough money, and they want to tear something down, and they are surprised that we're frustrated with them. And so the more we can work collaboratively with them, the better. So simply put, I tried to make the selling point, and also said, I'm out the door in December. I can't be the chair anymore. And I'm already poaching people to take up that mantle in the future. But she seems really enthusiastic. She really seemed to get that the technology issue we're suffering from, and think about solutions that maybe could come down the line later on this year if they start looking at budget solutions. And I emphasized enough how great Daniel and Jonathan Denise are. I think that need to be said, and I think we'd all agree about that. So there you go. That's, I can breathe again. Is there any other new business, John? Well, okay, if you want something.
I would like to say a few things quickly about Dunloring without discussion. Dunloring School,
Okay.
the project's been going on since December of 2020. The History Commission has been involved since the beginning because we saw it in the local news. Three of us who are watching it. It's been brought to this board. I have just spotted an email from Chris from January of 2022. It's been within the public school system until the spring when they filed their rezoning. So there was really no opportunity for the ARB to truly intervene because you're advising the board of supervisors, you should advise the school system. Besides, they've been not listening to the History Commission. If you read the site for the project, you will see basically a response to a History Commission letter. So take a look at it. It's point by point. They were told, staff was told at the very beginning, it's honorary. You can get a briefing from the ARB, but otherwise you're pretty much free to go. So that's where we are until they submitted their plan. There was a meeting that Daniel attended, Laura Kaviclis attended, and 4 of us from the History Commission attended on the subject. And the staff is going to do a staff report that I gather is not going to be positive. I can't say that for sure, and they haven't come out with it yet. But there's several ideas I want to plant in your head. First, do they really have to put it there? It seems, according to the McLean Citizens Association, there's a lot more need further over in the county. Second, is this property parcel large enough? They are now talking about building a 4-story, 65-foot building in an area that is either residential or commercial that goes up to 40 feet. So that's just going to be outrageous. Do they have to have such a big school? I mean, is the wrong parcel because it's not big enough to accommodate what they want to do? They think they're being environmentally correct going up, but they don't understand view sheds. The last thing is, we don't think they tried very hard to save the school. We don't really have a sense of who looked at it beyond the standard architect they're working with. So these are the ideas I'd like to plant in your head if you have a briefing next month. Ideas, ask them about. I will probably be a caretaker in New Jersey, so I will be attending remotely.
Okay. Thank you for that update.
Just to clarify that rezoning is slated for a planning commission appearance in September. It does not seem clear that can be achieved, but that is one opinion.
But if I didn't say anything, it would be next month.
Right.
It would be next month.
We are aggressively requesting that they come to the ARB to present the project. The avenue, therefore, after that would be the ARB writing a letter with their thoughts to the Board of Supervisors and the Planning Commission before a rezoning happens. The Dunloring School is a historic inventory site that is proposed for demolition as part of the rezoning for construction of a new campus, essentially.
The zoning being changed, what do they want to change the zoning to?
I don't know the answer to that. It's to increase the height. That's the big thing. Yeah.
It's like R1 to R3 or something like that. It's part of it's zoned one way and part of the parcel is zoned a different way. So they want to make it consistent also so
they can build a big
more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The building is currently used as an administrative center. So we have from the beginning and continue to ask for preservation. That is not really being discussed during any of the design meetings. I sat in one for Laura Kaviclis this week and we talked about the kiss and ride for 40 minutes and the bus parking spots. So like the focus is not on the preservation of the heritage resource that is on the property already. But we continue to advocate for it. The History Commission are being huge advocates for the property as well. So hopefully Fairfax County Public Schools, the team brings it to the ARB as requested. But I will update you when I know more. I would like to brief everyone that there's a very strong possibility of 2 July meetings because there is an August recess. We have a presentation coming from the Judicial Center team because that is going back to the Board of Supervisors for action. I also know of multiple projects in the Lorton MOA eligible district. We have 3 different solar projects that came in right after the deadline for this month. The summer tends to be very busy. So just that is the briefing.
I made the decision with Daniel that I thought it would be better to do this as one than make us have 2 meetings, despite the circumstances involving at least 3 of the applications potentially being contentious. So I know we're going to end later than we wanted to, but I think it was better than us trying to split this because I don't think it would have been as productive.
Could we have an August meeting?
We now recess. We used to.
That's, you gotta pitch the board.
Yeah, that chat. Sure. Oh, Samantha, yes.
Question, so when tonight's meeting video will be posted? Because I'm gonna watch it.
10 days after this meeting.
It's usually up by Monday, but
Okay.
we say within a week. So,
Okay.
yeah.
They'll probably have more views than most of the other ones.
Oh, you want to watch the first one?
All right. Nope.
Regarding Dunloring School, the bigger issue for the Fairfax County school system is they have all those schools that were built in the 1960s and 70s are all at the threshold of being old enough to be considered historic. And they don't care. A survey of county schools might be an interesting thing to propose.
I will add it to our ever-growing list.
All right. I will entertain. Oh,
I move to adjourn.
good. All right. Move to zone order. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Figured not. Adjourned.
These two, we should call them.
Yeah.